Hello, everyone. Here, this is Tyler, and I am going to have Todd back on the show. He's going to discuss a bit about what's happened since his last show that we did a couple weeks ago, and he's also made a move to Argentina. So, I will have him explain all of that. So, thank you for everyone for joining us, and here he is. Okay, Todd, nice to have you back. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, it's
Okay,
a
awesome.
pleasure.
Okay, so it's been a bit of time, and I can definitely tell your apartment is different than the one you were in. Um, can you discuss a bit about what's changed and what you're up to now?
Sure. So
Okay.
I made the decision to at least give it a try here again in Argentina. I wanted to visit because this is where my this is basically where my journey abroad had started. Was here back when I was 20 years old, and I came here. I had studied, and then I had started a startup, and there were a few other things that happened during that time period. But I felt that it was actually a great place for me to be. And yes, I know there are some aspects of the country that one might look down upon. And if we're focused on kind of the MGTOW element of the channel, for example, at least in theory, the social scene is different here than say over in Russia. For those who don't know this, I'm banned from Russia. I'm currently with about 4 years left, a little slightly over 4 years of an entry ban. I got a 5 year entry ban that I caught there. So my other possibilities, of course, might be say Belarus, but I'm also banned from there since it's part of the Union state, and I'm not going to step foot in Ukraine knowing what I know about that country. Even if it weren't at war, I still wouldn't be interested. And then, of course, there's the European Union and these sorts of vassal states of the West. And I look, I don't want to be overly harsh to any one of them, but I will say that what I see in those places is just it's not a good situation. I mean, they're headed down the same cliff that the United States is. Maybe they're a little further behind. Perhaps there's things that they don't deal with as much of, like say in Poland, you're not going to be dealing with as much, say, petty crime or violent crime. But still, in some ways, that might actually be worse because when it comes to like the overall respect that say women in that country have for men, I really think it's quickly diminishing. Poland is not the country it was say 20 or 30 years ago. And for those of you who have met a Polish person that tells you, "Oh yeah, it's a good place. You can go and wet up some woman there." It's like, yeah, maybe 20 years ago, 30 years ago, not anymore. It's totally westernized at this point, and it's just it's what it is.
Okay, very well. And MGTOW Cowboy, right at the beginning here asks, what exactly did you do to be banned from Russia?
What did I do? I didn't have the correct documentation to live there. I could have. I was eligible. In fact, right, if I had done things the proper way, I would have citizenship now if I wanted to.
Okay, very well. And so you arrived in Argentina about a week ago. I think it's been about 6 years since you were last there. How has it been now being back in Argentina? A second time around. Obviously, economy has just gotten progressively worse, and you're obviously older. What was your first impressions when you came back to
Oh.
Argentina last week?
Yeah, so honestly, it's not as bad as I was expecting.
Hmm.
In all honesty, I was thinking that there would be more crime. I guess what I was envisioning was not actually as bad as what I'm experiencing. Like, I thought that I would be dealing with issues that I'm really not dealing with. Overall, I mean, when it comes to like I like dating and stuff like that, I've been out on some dates with some girls, and generally they've been like quite good. Uh, there was a Russian that I went out with, and it was getting kind of a slap in the face. The whole Eastern Slavic culture thing I've talked about in detail. I had published videos on, about dating Eastern Slavs, and if I think those videos are on private. I'll make them public again. I'll try to do that in the next couple of days. But I've talked about the situation there, and I don't know why. It's everyone's different. I don't want to say that it would be bad for everyone. I mean, of course, there's positive attributes about Russia. I mean, you're not going to see people waving around, say, pro LGBT flags or something. Not saying if someone wants to live that way. I mean, I don't particularly have a strong opinion if someone's just keeping that to themselves. But if it's just being constantly promoted, it just gets old after a while, and it's not good for the younger people, I think. So that makes. To cut to the chase, that's the kind of thing I like about Russia. But then again, Russia also has attributes that aren't so good.
Okay. So when you got to the airport on Sunday or Monday in Argentina, was it pretty similar to when you left the country? Did most everything kind of remind you of when you were back in 2017 or 2018?
Excuse me. Yeah, one thing that was different is that, excuse me, last time I was here, I was heavier weight wise, and at that point I was drinking quite heavily. I wasn't alcoholic, just a heavy drinker. And so I remember getting into the airport feeling really like tired and hot and worn down. And compared to like the flight that I took over from Europe was a total flight time was like over 15 hours of flight time, 15 and a half, I think, from Poland, because it's much further even than, say, Chicago to Buenos Aires. So it was a very long flight, the longest I've ever been on the leg from Germany to Argentina. Honestly, I felt better, a lot better, probably because I'd lost a good amount of weight. I still drank, just not as much as I used to. And just overall take better care of myself, eat better, just do things better. So I physically, I felt much better, and mentally, I wasn't sure how I'd feel. Yeah, overall, I feel quite good. Like it's really, I feel better mentally, if I can say the truth, than I do over in Poland.
Okay. So what do you say at least from a first impressions, do you feel better being now in Argentina than when you were in Poland, or is it too early to say?
From what I can say now, yeah, I feel better. Look, as I said, I know there's things you can, for those of you who are watching this, you can go online and I'm sure you can find, of course, negative aspects of Argentina. You can find some whacked out feminist or things like that. But I look more at the tangible results, what's actually happening on the ground. And I think that what I found quite disturbing over in Poland is just how arrogant and how entitled and just the nonsense that you see in other Western countries, unfortunately, has now made its way into that country. And it's not, I mean, there's still some positive attributes, but I think if Russia doesn't intervene militarily in that country within the next, say, 10 years, it's going to become a total disaster in that society. It's not going to be any different than what you'd see like in Sweden or Germany, maybe even worse.
Interesting. So in Argentina, do you have any idea, like any timeline of how long you'll be there for, or what kind of visa you're going to acquire? I would imagine right now you're on a tourist visa at the moment.
Yeah, no, well, the entry, there's no entry or visa entry requirement into Argentina. It doesn't exist any longer. So I'm just with my passport, and I have up to 90 days, and then I can leave the country to a visa run and renew it again. And yeah, Noble Savage, Poland, yeah, that's exactly what happened. It completely sold out to globalists. And this Donald Tusk guy that they have in charge, I mean, listen, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying the prior administration was great. Unfortunately, I think that prior administration was also converged. It was not autonomous. It wasn't like, say, a Putin or a Lukashenko or something, where these guys are operating on their own. These are populists. These are guys that don't care what the U.S. wants. Whereas unfortunately, Poland had this kind of, I don't even know how to call it, like almost like a Bush era conservative government, and it was totally sold out to the U.S. and to Western countries, and then it was replaced by this, like, just, I call it the swamp. I mean, basically this Donald Tusk guy in these stupid libtards that they put into their government. I mean, every other European country is saying that this war could be a disaster for us. Poland, meanwhile, is literally adopting a position that could antagonize it into the war. Of course, Russia, if it, like, with their libtards running that country now, if things, like, who knows what they're capable of. And I tell Polish people this, it's like, I wouldn't be fooling around with the Russians. We're seeing how strong they are against Ukraine, and it makes no sense to me. Like, the Polish are just, I don't understand it.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say about this next point by Mikhail Cowboy about Russia being the highest divorce rate in the world?
Yeah, that is absolutely correct. Yeah, MGTOW Cowboy. Here's the thing. Here in Argentina, I actually went on a date with a gal from Russia, 23, from Moscow, and needless to say, is that the same squirrelish kind of behavior, whimsical behavior I experienced over in Russia and also in Poland. Also, same thing with her. Whereas with the girls from here, they're not as, I'm not saying it's easy to get a date here, but if you get a date, I mean, chances are the girl's actually interested in, having something more romantic. Whereas with these Russian girls or other Slavic, at least nowadays, yeah, it's stupid. Like, you're in many ways wasting your time. And after that experience, I will say that will probably be the last Russian that I would go on a date with, because it's stupid, waste of time.
Could you elaborate a bit more on what exactly transpired there? So this was a Russian gal that was living in Argentina for who knows what reason. Most likely, as we've discussed, it was for some
Because she
kind
doesn't
of.
like Russia.
Okay.
Sorry for interrupting. She said she doesn't like Russia.
Okay. And what ended up happening exactly? You encountered her on dating app, and then you went out. Was it once or twice?
Yeah. Noble Savage, I will remark on that. Yeah, that's actually a good point. It's something I want to remark on. So yeah, went out. We arranged to meet, and it was, look, I mean, she, from the very beginning, she had sent me a couple locations. I went to one of them. There were a couple different places. I went to one, and it happened to be the wrong one. And then it's like she says, "Oh, I'm at this first one." Like, well, you sent me a couple different places. I went to the second one, and so that ended up happening. I go there, and I basically had to make a kind of an exchange with her on something. So I needed to get the money that she owed me, and she gave me the money, and then I had to give her something that she had asked me to get over in Poland. So we did that, and then we talked for a while and had some stuff to eat and drink. But after that, knowing what I know with the Russians, here's the thing, guys, with the Russians is, don't expect, just because you get like a date with a girl from there, it's not like, in many cases it's not going to go anywhere. It's not like, if you're like here in Argentina, like, I'm being dead serious. Prostitute. Yeah, I'll talk about that also. MGTOW Cowboy. Um, if you get a date with an Argentine, like on, like, say, Bumble dating app, go on a date, that girl probably actually wants to be physically romantic with you. And I could have, let's just say this, I'm not joking, I had 2 dates yesterday, and with the first one, I could have, like, gone all the way, basically. But then I had a second one that was set up, and I had already met the other one. Was quite, honestly, like, I mean, quite good looking, and I don't want to screw that one up. So I had to like shut things down so I could go on to the second one. And that's how it is with the Argentines. So is that like if they actually agree to go on a date with you, they're actually interested in having romantic interaction almost immediately, or within maybe no more than like, I mean, you could make out with them on the first day easily, and that's what they want. And you could maybe even have like some bedroom action on the first date or probably second date.
Yeah, and I mean, if for us guys in America, we could never imagine this. Obviously, would never transpire for anyone who lives here in the States. And something else too that Todd could comment on is there's, I think, a little more relaxed
Very
vibe
true,
with
man. Very
them.
true.
They're not as kind of wound up, you might say, with as like Russians and Ukrainians. There's just more of a like there's a more comfortable, relaxed nature to them. Um, in terms of like taking each day by day rather than just constantly being obsessed about trivial matters. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. They have a more laid back approach to life. I sometimes say that Argentines are like the, not in a bad way, but are like the hippies almost of South America. So
Mm-hmm.
Argentines really are a very they take things in a very relaxed manner. And even one of these girls, the first one I was with, had mentioned this thing to me about free love. I mean, she's a psychologist,
Mm-hmm.
and I mean, I can pretty much figure out what she wanted. I mean, I've seen
Mm-hmm.
what she looks like. I mean, with most of her clothes off, and some of her pictures from her dating profile. So, um, I already have an idea about how she would look in that way. But yeah, I mean, seeing how she looked yesterday, I mean, yeah, both of the girls I was on dates with yesterday were phenomenal looks wise. Argentines are generally, in my opinion, some of the best looking on average in the world. I mean, I'm not just saying that because a lot of them they have more European blood, mostly European blood in them, or all European. And usually if you compare them to like Spaniards, Italians, these girls, they're better looking usually than those Southern Europeans.
Okay, I try to stay kind of on point here, but I want to go back here to this comment, Noble Savage Row. What's your input here on this, Todd?
Yeah,
I think
Poznan,
he's talking about
Wrocław,
yeah.
Lublin, Krakow. Yeah.
It,
Noble Savage. I've been to Poznan, Lublin, and Krakow. My girlfriend in Poland. I had a girlfriend last year. Although, of course, she, in good Slavic fashion, she claimed that she wasn't actually my girlfriend when she broke up. But I mean, I guess that's to be expected. But Lublin is where she was from. And honestly, I mean, I hate saying this, but um, I compare her to gals that I was dating when I was in, say, uh, or gals I can date here, and there's no comparison. I mean, this girl I was with in Poland was probably about a five, honestly. Like, she, I mean, part of the problem is that I guess I was just too desperate to be with someone, and I just at that point couldn't accept that it was just turning into a disaster there in Poland and just stupid.
hmm. I gotta say, this next comment, I'm sure both Todd and I would agree
Oh,
with.
yeah, awful. Like
What's
it's
your input
still
on that, Todd?
exactly my experience. I have more so with Slovak, but Czech Slovak, it's like the same thing. And Estonian, yeah, Estonian was brutal. Tyler and I we both lived in Estonia, and that
Yeah.
had to be that had to be the worst country I've ever lived for dating. Well, U.S. maybe U.S. I mean, outside the
Hmm.
U.S.
Hmm.
Estonia easily the worst country I've ever been to. You can imagine. I went
Yeah.
from Argentina, like I just had it made with dating here. Like I was just on like it was so easy here, and then getting to Estonia and saying to some bimbo on a dating app, "What's up?" and she says, "Oh, this guy," some snarky ass remark. It's like yeah, I had an idea then, and of course I was hardly getting any matches on like Tinder and stuff there, and I knew it was just going to be terrible, and it was in that respect. And again, Estonia is another country that's totally sold out to Western globalists. They're totally on board with the global homo death train, or the runaway death train that they're on, and I guess it'll probably end in similar fashion.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah, I've Todd and we've both been to Talon and Tartu, and that's kind of I would definitely agree with that. These are not cities, folks, for like dating if or countries. You can't believe what this Western globalist agenda, these media outlets are driving their own agendas here. And also my question for everyone here is, why would you believe someone who's like, these are like older men often, like it's like as when these older politicians from the US talk about various things of these countries, okay, these are men that haven't dated for like 40 years. They've like literally been married on and off for like 40 or 60 years. So would you really believe these guys, like the input they're giving? I wouldn't believe them. I mean, let alone they're dishonest about the nature of the US, the dating market. So you think I wouldn't believe like their input when it comes to like international affairs? Heck no. They're they're not typically too enmeshed in like the actual real locals of these places, and that's just a fact. Now, one other thing, Todd, if we go back, Todd stated like when he was in his mid-20s, he had a great dating life in Argentina, like around 2017, 2018. Now, just to put this in perspective, his economics were really poor at the time. He was not in a good position. As he said, physically, he's in much better shape and condition now, mentally speaking, and whatnot. And I think it just illustrates that. Look, I'm not putting these gals on a pedestal by any means, but at the end of the day, it just illustrates how some countries are just better options for people. And Argentina, I think, is definitely one of these places. When Todd got to Argentina like a week ago, I kind of had a feeling it was going to be a lot better. No, so once you arrive there, you already had like some dates, kind of figured out, correct?
Yeah.
Gals that you met through online dating.
Yeah, and generally, I mean, they were attractive. The two, as I said, the two girls I was with yesterday would probably be A pluses, I would
Hmm.
say. But yeah, I mean, there were ones that were a little like lower than that, I guess you could say. But usually, like that's something else I've noticed since I got into better shape physically.
Hmm.
Like what I can get now, dating wise, is probably a little better than like what I got when I was kind of overweight. Um,
Yeah.
just to
Yeah,
say.
and this is another continuation that me and my brother spoke about this many times.
The
These
Nordic.
Estonians claim to be Nordic, and they're absolutely not Nordic. They're like Russians, essentially. They're not even
Well, you know
similar to
what?
Finnish. What?
Yeah, you know what made my blood boil is that we would actually, Tyler and I are actually like, I've done the 23andMe, and yes, I know it was probably stupid because looking at what those companies are doing now with that data. But in any case, I did do the 23andMe, and I like we already knew this, but we're like 60+% actual like Scandinavian, like not this fake Nordic from Estonia, which is just like they're like Eastern Slavic people. I mean, we're
Mhm.
actually Nordic people. And I had even mentioned this. I not like I wouldn't go out and tell people I'm Nordic, but there were some times where it get brought up like in conversation, and there were people that there was at least one person that was trying to deny, oh, you're not Nordic, you're an American. Like I'm like, yeah, I'm Nordic. I mean, ethnically, maybe like I'm not born in a Nordic country, but it's like, guess what? I'm a lot more Nordic than you are. It's like that's I mean, just these people are dumb in
Mhm.
countries like that. It's just it's not even worth like I just tell this to you guys. I would just avoid those countries.
And I'll go to this comment, Todd. This relates to the question I was going to ask you. Of countries, why did you pick Argentina? Like when you were looking at alternatives to Poland, you,
Oh,
I'm sure, had some criteria there.
yeah, now use Ultras also. Right. So prior experience, I'm fluent in Spanish. They really, I think they have, of course, they have an interesting history, society. I had pretty good experience when I had lived here before. And so it was just a culmination of factors. Obviously, they're suffering with hyperinflation, and I'm not running like a local business here, at least not yet, or making local income. So it would be advantageous with foreign currency exchange on the black market, and it's not so bad, the cost of living here. And the average salaries here are only like a couple $100s a month, like seriously. So if like you want to, like if you're even making like $1,000 a month, I'm not even joking, you're already in the top percentage of earner. Like I don't know if we'd be in top, maybe even top 1%, like certainly top probably 5%. And at 2000,
I can guarantee you, I don't know if the vibes changed at all, Todd, since I was here. Like almost anyone, when you first get to Argentina, I mean, it is just an awesome country. Like this, I mean, the vibe is so different to what you were used to in Poland and Russia. And I'm sure it's still kind of the same, isn't it? Maybe even a little better at this. What would you say to this commenter here, user? That's just something you could probably cover better.
User, can you clarify that occurred in Argentina?
Yeah, we can go back to that one. And yeah, the 23andMe stock is indeed crashing big time.
Yeah, well, again, it's one of those woman-started companies or woman-led companies. It's just like a Yahoo or something, just gone down the drain. That's stupid, but we know how that goes. They get propped up. Oh yeah, Portuguese.
No,
1986. Wow, long time.
Yeah, no, it's interesting that you say this, Noble, because all the mainstream media often online is so proud of being part of the EU, and you have the likes of Andrew Henderson with Nomad Capitalist. It's interesting your feedback there because that's very contrary to what the masses say, but I think it goes back to the same thing. Many of these countries, especially in Europe, all have these kind of United Nation powered agendas, kind of driving for the same quote unified Europe, or they all want this kind of system that's basically they want all Europe and the world to be homogenous, like what we see in America. And I think that's the real long-term goals there. The women, obviously, of your country are probably much more keen on this agenda than the men, at least younger women. Just like the agendas in other places, these liberal agendas tend to be more supported by women. But let's go back there to that MGTOW cowboy. And so it seems like you're still in Portugal. And one thing interesting, Noble, there were a lot of Spanish, Italian sellers to Argentina. I think the landscape is quite similar in Portugal to parts of Argentina. So where Todd is now is very, it would be very like similar. I mean, Brazil, obviously, many of the early settlers were, of course, of Portuguese origin. And there definitely was a strong connection there in both Argentina and Brazil. What's your take, Todd?
Oh, definitely. I was going to say comment also, Noble Savage. With that kind of mindset, you could even go to a place like America because there's a lot of open space in America. And if you're more in the monk mode frame of things, you could even find some really nice places in the U.S., like in Wyoming, for example.
Yeah, it definitely seems like the for person to person, obviously their goals are kind of different. And just so I don't forget, MGTOW Cowboy, yeah, that's incredible. Trucking,
Great.
of course, there's a huge like demand for trucking, and it's always going to be there with logistics and stuff. I think eventually you'll be well over 100, possibly over 200K in the next couple of years, depending on how things plan out. And you're always going to have work, obviously, because you're in a high demand sector. But okay, so let's go back here, Todd, to your first week there. What?
Can I interject? There was a question talking about like the lower how Argentines look at Americans as lower class. That comment.
Oh
Was
yeah,
that was that
yeah,
comment or was that in Argentina? This one.
yeah. Looks like it.
Okay, user. I'll respond to that. Uh, okay. Honestly, that has not really been at all my experience. In fact, just the opposite. One thing I will say is the people that I communicate with here generally just speak Spanish. Like these two girls I was with yesterday, neither of them spoke fluent English. If I had gone tried to meet them not knowing Spanish, like when I first got in here back when I was in my early 20s, it would have been impossible basically to get anywhere. It would have been like when I tried to meet these Russians. But I think that if you meet like a certain westernized segment, you're going to run into that perhaps, and those are the people to certainly avoid like the plague. It's like the problem is that these people that are coming into like that are more like the can speak English, for example, they're exposed to all this nonsense propaganda. I'm not saying that the propaganda doesn't exist in Spanish, but it's just going to be a lot more intense, and it's going to be more in line with, of course, the U.S. and other Western European countries if they're speaking English, and so their whole mindset is just going to be totally different. I remember this. This was an issue with the first girlfriend that I had here. This was one of the issues with her. She's the first and only girl that I've dated here that has gone to an English bilingual school. The other girls were more of just normal local girls. They weren't like they weren't like going to bilingual schools. They couldn't even really speak much English. And even I think back, my brother can remember this. Like in terms of like her look and everything, it was kind of like some liberal, like feminist sort of situation when I think back on, and that kind of girl here, I would not date again. That's what
And I
happened.
let alone attract you. You most likely
I
wouldn't
wouldn't.
attract her now either. Especially
No,
having spent so many years in Eastern Europe, that you wouldn't have the vibe that would even attract her.
no, and so that's a problem with if you don't speak the local language, those are going to be the kind of girls that you have to go out with. It was the same way in Poland. Like those were
Yeah, for sure. Yes, I can. Is this for you, Todd? Because I know this was. Can I have him on for a
yeah, of
period?
course, yeah.
Okay. What I'll do, Noble, is send you the link. And then it's not gonna be immediately, but I'll within like a few minutes, I'll bring you on right. Um, when we're at a transition point. And so how about this comment, Todd? Like you've obviously, we've both been to Brazil a few times. What would your say? What would you say about this? Also, one other thing, Noble, is can you provide your email? Because you can write it here, or you can find my email on my YouTube channel, and I will then send you the link via the YouTube channel that you, or it will either be on here or via my YouTube channel once you get my email address. Sorry about.
Noble says, yeah. I look. I know what you're saying, and what I'll say to that is that unfortunately there's truth to be had there. It's the situation. Yeah, Chicago, of course. It's a situation that we're in right now, and in the Americas, it has the distinct problem of the fact that maybe I shouldn't say this, but USA and Canada did a very good job initially with getting rid of the local inhabitants and replacing them with Europeans. And then it made a terrible mistake of importing in all the like the slave. There were both European and African slaves. So it wasn't just African. You hear about this idea that it was only from Africa. No, there were Europeans also that were slaves. But this idea of importing in all these slaves that were from completely different culture, society, and that completely messed up America. And then, of course, as each decade passed, there were more and more laws passed that essentially destroyed our Germanic country. America was founded as a ethnically Germanic country. Like Tyler and I were ethnically Germanic. That's what the United States was designed as, and it essentially lost that because there were powerful people, usually men, that didn't care about preserving what was there. They cared about enriching themselves or gaining more power. And
Yeah,
Latin
totally.
America, yeah, if I can just add on one thing, Latin America made the even maybe a worse mistake of where they were intermixed. The Europeans there were, or here, well, kind of here, were intermixing with the locals instead of importing their own women. And they created, I guess you could say, the bronze races, and then of course there's also a lot of Africans. And look, if any of you here are African, like African or Latino, or whatever, I'm not insulting you. I'm just saying, like, trying to explain the facts. And unfortunately, there's unfortunate realities. If you're following this stream, I have no problem with you for whatever your ethnicity is. I'm just trying to state the facts, and it's impossible, I think, to analyze these situations without looking at, say, demographics.
Yeah, and I mean, to add on to that, when you look at the history of the U.S., like how they teach it in schools is just so. I mean, it's horrible, honestly. Like, for example, when you look at like a lot of the inhabitants of the upper Midwest and heartland of America, their descendants came to America in the 20th century. Like, this I have a kind of buddy here who's of a different ethnicity than me, and I mean, I get his points what he brings up about this whole like Black History Month, but in slavery. But as I tell him, like, okay, we had slavery in Europe and other countries also, but at the same time, most of the Europeans in the upper Midwest, their grandparents and great grandparents came after slavery in America in the 20th century. In other words, the Black inhabitants were like literally already in the U.S. before them. They came after the Civil War. They had nothing to do with that. None of like Todd or I's ancestors were even here before the Civil War. So it's like that's one of these things that just really annoys me. I never even really thought about this when I was younger, and then I'm like, wait a minute, this is just like full blown stupid. I mean, if we look at like Eastern Europeans, a lot of their ancestors, the majority came from the early to mid 20th century to America. So that was just a addition I was going to make there, and um, as far
Yeah,
as
German,
yeah,
Boy.
yeah, that also
Yeah.
is very
Yeah,
true.
we have some German blood in us also. I think about maybe 8 or 10% or something. It's from our mom. It's I think 60 something percent Scandinavian, 8 or 10% German, and then Anglo and some other
So
stuff.
this was a question that Matt had asked. As for myself, Matt, I cannot say at the moment. I simply don't know. It's a. What about yourself?
I honestly, I hope so. If I can find someone, but I'm not going how do I say this? I I can't accept just like any girl of any ethnic background. For example, if I was open, let's say, to being with I don't know, a Filipina girl or something, and I have no issue with that. People are into that, fine, especially if it's just pay to play. Okay, whatever. But if I'm procreating, I would like to be with someone, preferably who are like, I guess, of Northern European background like me. But realistically, will that happen? Given the current state of affairs in the world, probably not. So I have to be more liberal than that and just accept any European background. So the most likely place I would see that happening is actually here in Argentina. So it's more likely the girl would be of probably Southern European background, which is okay. I mean, it's not like, I mean, it's still European. And I think that that it would be good because no one, my brother's not like, he doesn't have any children. I don't. We have a sister who's super feminist, and she's like in her mid-30s now. She has no interest in that. And then we have like older well, someone older, but in our family, there's really not any continuation to our genetic lineage from our fathers. So it would be, I guess, maybe unfortunate
Hmm. Yeah,
if we didn't.
yeah, like it's pretty sad because like I work in high schools now and I have students that are 15. You don't have to guess what ethnicity they are. They already have children, like at least one child. And I mean, I think it's absolutely like pathetic considering they can't even like take care of themselves. They're like literally treated like children, but they're having children. It's just, I mean, it's terrible. I don't know. Like, okay, granted, people obviously might have had children 300 years ago at that age, but the guy that was with them or something like was obviously older typically, but also they weren't living off the welfare of the state and they weren't spreading their like they weren't used as pawns for the state, welfare state. And so that's one of the key distinctions nowadays. But like anything, you can't put the cart before the horse. So, one thing also, Todd, for anyone that's looking at Argentina, I most certainly am looking at going there very soon now. Um, would you say like it's a country like most guys here? I mean, we could all go down there pretty easily. You don't need a visa. There's very affordable rental options. Just given a like like a simple outlook at what the market is like for renting an apartment and living and
Well,
whatnot, it's really cheap there right now.
it is, especially if you can get like a fair, like normal local rate.
Hmm.
You can find, I was looking online, I was seeing places that were going for, if you do the exchange, it would be like $200, $300 a month, even $100 because there's hyperinflation here. So you
Hmm.
can get places that are like extremely affordable by,
Can you? Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. Like when you look at like to get the same kind of property, even in what's considered cheaper European cities, would be like way more. It would be at least 1,000 or a couple thousand, especially when if you were in the U.S. But I'm going to go back to what we're talking about. I'll let Noble on first. And he wanted to kind of give his input. So here's Noble here for everyone. Hello, Noble.
welcome.
Hello?
Yes,
Can you hear me?
yes. Can you hear us?
Yeah, hello, Tyler and
Okay,
Todd. How are you guys doing?
nice, good.
Good. It's a pleasure meeting you. Where are you from?
I'm from Portugal.
Oh, it's
Nice.
you. Right. Okay, yeah, because I can just see right. Okay, I thought it was you. That's
Hmm.
great.
Yeah, I've been
So,
following your videos on the Estonian. I guess it was Tyler that was living in Estonia for a while, and Todd spent more time. I think he was in St. Petersburg, and I enjoy the content. I wish more guys were doing backpacking videos and putting their inputs and their experience on here because we have a lot of guys that are all about, oh well, I want to go, I want to be a passport bro, and you guys were already in the field and you had so much to say. So hey.
yeah.
Yeah, and the
Well,
other
welcome.
problem too, if I can say this, is a lot of times the guys that will go that far away will be these blue pilled, really typical, stereotypical blue pilled kind of guys that you would expect, where it's like they're not going to be honest or they truly believe in the propaganda that's being sold to them. Like even like the other day, I was at a shopping center here. I had to buy something, and I saw this group of Americans, and the guys were in okay shape, and they were with like American like females. I don't know, they were maybe in their like early 30s, and the gals they were with were all like overweight. I'm like, why do you want to be with them? Like, I would like, I mean, I'd be looking around. I'm like, this is crazy. I mean, you're with these like these hippos, and it's like all around you. Like, there's just, I mean, for a guy, if they're, I know for maybe for you, you take a different approach with this kind of stuff, but for if a guy was interested in being with someone, especially in that sense where these guys might be paying for them to go down to here. And I look at what they're with, it's like, gosh, I don't know how these guys do it. I wouldn't waste my time personally.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, dude, I like during my travels, I get so many, like, no offense, Americans are like the cringiest people that I've ever met, like in my travels. It's like, so get this. So I was in a city center of Zurich in Switzerland, and someone had broken into my van, and I was looking in the shop of Decathlon for a baseball bat, just to have it in case some junkies or some tweakers wanted to break in while I was inside, and I would like have something to, defend because it's my property, it's my domicile. And so I went to the shop, and I get like these like two Americans. One of them had like a painted nails black, and he was like speaking the most like faggy voice, and I'm like, all right, let's hurry for these guys to go, because I just need to ask a question. And these guys are hitting on the chick working there, and it's like oh, we could go out, and she's like oh, I'm probably not gonna go, and it's like you could tell that this bitch was like just like these dudes reeked of cringe. And I just asked, excuse me, miss, do you sell some baseball bats, because I need to buy a baseball bat to put in my van. Someone broke the window last night. And then these Americans, one of them, I think he was the guy with the painted nails, he said, oh my God, really? And I'm like, dude, just fuck off. Just because I can't stand like fagginess, And then I said, hey, it won't take much of your time. Can I just like get the thing, pay it, and fuck off? And then she's like, oh my God, thank you. Like I couldn't stand the conversation anymore. And it's like, I'm in a center of the most expensive city. I don't want to say the world, but the continent, Zurich. And like these chicks are all about, this gentleman wants, like all in German, like Schweizerdeutsch, like the Swiss German. Oh, this gentleman wants to buy a bat and stuff, and they were like all interested in my story, and I spoke to them like for 10 seconds, because these chicks are tired of pussy dudes like coming here and thinking, oh, I'm an American, I can just like show up with my passport and my black painted nails. And it's like, dude, just get in touch with your inner barbarian. And these chicks, they don't even care if you're broke or live in a van or some shit.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's really what annoys the heck out of me. Here's the other problem with that, is that then if I'm in a country where like I'm meeting gals that have already been around these Western dorks like that, those American dorks, then they're comparing me to them, because it's like, us as guys, we can compartmentalize, and a guy could have, say, I mean, a guy could have like 50 girlfriends and then get married, and they could do just fine in a marriage. A girl could never do that. And the problem, one of the issues, is girls obviously don't compartmentalize. They're not really able to do that. And they're going to compare you to these morons that they've met with or known in the past. And that's one of the reasons why I commented, like, even here, I've noticed that, like, if I go into like a dating app or something, I don't even track these girls that are like, if they speak fluent English, only ones that speak fluent Spanish. And honestly, I don't know why, but a lot of times the gals here that speak just fluent Spanish are often like better looking. Like, I mean, maybe a person could say they're idiots that are not idiots, but maybe a person could say, well, they're not too intelligent if they can't speak English. I'm like, well, in today's world, with how things are, I mean, I'm not going to lie. Yeah, I won't be vain. I'm just going to look at how the girl looks, honestly, because gals are a lot more vain than us guys could ever dream of being. So it's like, of course, I'm just going to look at how she looks. I mean, that's like, girls are like that multiplied by several times with guys. So,
dude, I don't feel no shame. I don't feel no shame saying that I'm interested in for her looks, because essentially on a biological I guess you want to say like a topic or something, like they know that they have to bring that to the table, because men want to make sure that the genes get pushed forward, and they have like attractive traits to ensure that then their offspring will have offspring, and then like more and more, so the bloodline doesn't get extinguished or diminished or something. So like, what do you think sounds worse? a guy being quote unquote shallow for a woman's looks, or a woman being vain for a man's resources?
Well, of course, resources, because in the long run, also the woman's actually coming out ahead. And I mean, I guess the guys that are like checked out of the dating are smart in that way, that I can be honest about that. Guys like they're the ones that are going to win in that sense in the long run, the women. So it's actually, to me, it makes even less sense if a girl's just if she's not recognizing that it's the man who's the prize. She's not the prize, it's the guy who's the prize. And I know some guys in the online have said this, and even a guy I'm not a huge fan of, Richard Cooper, because I think he sells fantasies to a lot of guys. He's not completely honest, but he has said that, and I agree with that.
Yeah, us in MGTOW, we call Richard Cooper Richard Coper because he sells a bunch of cope.
I can't believe his sessions. What does he charge? Like $8,000 an hour?
I wouldn't know. I would never pay a dime.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere between it's like 6,000 to 7,000 an hour. Yeah, this is insane, the price.
I don't know how people do, like, how because, and the guy said, like, the first thing, the problem, if guys are pursuing that, I recognize that for guys who are, what is that, level 4 MGTOW, there's no dating anymore, just totally checked out. But for guys that are pursuing dating, I would say this to a guy: the biggest problem for most of these guys is location. Just like in business, I mean, our societies are totally commercialized now. Just like you have in business, main issue for a lot of these guys is they're in the wrong locations. It's what do you call it? Like they're geocells.
Right. But now that we're talking about like geography and geomaxing, I just want to hear your strategies, because what I'm thinking of is that cities are just not worth it anymore, either in the first world or the third world, because that's where all the tourists go anyway.
Yeah. And that's actually a valid point. Okay, great, McTom. That's a valid point, Noble Savage. In the cities, in the big cities, of course, you're going to attract the most shallow, vain, most merchant-oriented people. I think, though, what's happened, like here in Argentina, is like it deteriorates and gets worse and worse. Even in the big cities, the incomes are so low that I think what you would traditionally see, you're starting to not see here. Like, you don't really see luxury cars. The whole time I've been here, I've seen two luxury cars being in the biggest city of the country, because it's just an economic basket case. Now, of course, most people would be like, that's terrible. Well, it's terrible in the sense that for a lot of people, it might not be that comfortable for a living. But if you're a guy and you're trying to date in that hellscape, that's what you want. Like, when these girls have it easy, comfortable, when they trust in their government, when they think their government is their best friend, that girl is going to make you her bitch. Or that's how she's going to look at you, like you don't have any value, unless you're like an Elon Musk or someone of, I guess, that's considered by the mainstream to be of super high status and great resources.
Yeah, and what's that?
Or she's one of these types that pursues the guys, I guess, that she thinks are the bad boys. And what's funny about it, I've actually been to jail. And like, I mean, I slept across from a guy that murdered someone, and these guys actually respected me. Like, a lot of the guys that will act like they're the quote bad boys, I mean, a lot of those guys, I mean, it's all fake, but of course these gals don't know it. Yeah, Matt.
Well, and just in a quick introduction, here's MGTOW Cowboy also. He lives in Chicago, and it's also great having you on here. MGTOW, I've never actually spoken to you in person. Do you want to also give a quick introduction to yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
First off, thank you very much for having me. You know what? Now that I think of it, I you're right. I have not spoken with you over a stream. I think I spoke with your brother though. Todd. Todd, did I not interview you once, like 2 years ago or something like that?
There was talk. There was talk of it. I can't remember if it went through or not because there was a lot that happened the past couple of years. But it may have happened.
Yes,
I
yes, no,
think, yeah.
it most certainly did. I vividly remember interviewing you. In fact, your interview with me or my interview of you is still currently up on my page. So,
Got
but
it.
that's interesting. For some reason, I thought I had interviewed your brother right until right now, this very moment. Now I remember. Right, it was you, Todd, not Tyler. So, yeah, no, thank you guys. Yeah, no, I'm just I don't know if I call myself a level 4 MGTOW, but yeah, no, I'm a hardcore MGTOW, been MGTOW for years. Um, I remember back in 2012 when I graduated university, one of the very last reports I did or investigative research papers I did was it was titled "The Coming," what is it? The Coming Boy Crisis, and it talked all about how young men are starting to struggle, especially in secondary and post-secondary education. So I've sort of had like MGTOW or like men's rights leanings for many, many years, Um, yeah, and so channels like yours, what is this? The Maverick Capitalist.
Mm-hmm.
Channels like this, I find to be sort of right up my alley.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's what I thought too, MGTOW Cowboy. Like, I know. I think what was the channel called before, Tyler? It was the
Viking Traveler. Yeah, it
Viking
was Viking
Traveler.
Traveler. Yeah, just totally random name, honestly.
And also, I agree because especially a lot of the content you see in the supposed manosphere, guys pushing like supposedly for self-improvement among guys, and these guys in reality are snake oil salesmen. I have a hard time saying that. They're snake oil salesmen that are selling nonsense to a lot of these guys. There may be sprinkles of truth in there, like with, say, Richard Cooper. He might say a few things that are true here and there. But I wonder to myself, are these guys, first of all, are these guys MGTOW? No. Someone like Richard Cooper, as I understand, actually has like a girlfriend that he's been with for a long time, and at least a long time by Canadian standards. And from what I understand, that guy, Coach Red Pill, is that what it is, Tyler? Or what was Coach Greg Adams?
Coach Red Pill. Coach Red Pill was actually Lira, that Gonzalo Lira, that gentleman who was just, I believe he passed away recently.
Yeah, he died. Who's that other one?
There was Coach Greg Adams, and then
Coach Greg Adams.
Yeah.
That's it. And that guy is a total fraud. Like, he's telling guys not to wed up single mothers, which I totally agree with. He's telling them some things that are true, but then he himself, he wedded up this white woman, like she's a single mother, way beyond the age he would recommend, of course. And he's telling guys to do this kind of stuff. It's like, then why aren't you? You're as thirsty as can be, wedding up this woman, this white woman that has a child, and he's telling guys not to do that, but he himself is. And don't get me wrong, when she was like, if it had been like 15 years ago, 20 years ago, yes, she would have been, I think, quite, attractive. But I mean, would she have been interested in him 15 or 20 years ago?
I'm sorry, just to interject. Are we talking about Coach Red Pill, or are you talking about Donovan Sharp?
Oh, Donovan Sharp, I think it is.
Right. Because I'm sorry, the profile that you are describing, it seems like it fits Donovan Sharp.
Yes.
These are both African American or black men here in America, but one of them, I believe, is still single, and he pushes something called the free agent lifestyle.
That's Coach Greg Adams.
Yeah, that's Coach Greg Adams. Yeah, okay. I think you're talking about Donovan Sharp.
Donovan.
I've openly and publicly called out Donovan Sharp as well. I don't know, he's a fraud, he's a huckster. That guy is a joker and a charlatan. And he's also a convicted felon, just for the record. But yeah.
I
No,
didn't
I'm
know
not
that.
surprised. I'm not surprised. Like I mean, you look at a guy like that. He's doing everything that it could possibly, like a guy could possibly do to mess someone up. Tyler and I, we have a older sister. Well, her father's technically different, but we just say she's our sister. And her husband is married. Her father-in-law, you could say, had a situation where he was married to this woman and she had a child, and then she ended up divorcing him, and it really costed him big time financially, that marriage.
Yeah.
And I have, and it will continue to cost him because she'll get his pension, at least part
Actually,
of it.
that's a really good thing you mentioned. I should try to contact him and see if he's interested in coming on here. He might be,
Yeah,
at
maybe.
least without his face, he might be interested. I could do a whole video on that issue though.
Yeah, he got totally screwed over, and he should have. People were telling him that this woman is problematic. Wouldn't marry her. Of course, he went through with it. I guess thinking that, like a typical in baby boomer fashion, I guess thinking that he could just make a good situation out of a bad one in this marriage with this
I'm
really.
sorry. I'm sorry. Just to have you reiterate, whom are we speaking about? Your aunt's,
Our
sorry,
it's our
sister.
Yeah, our eldest sister's father-in-law.
Mhm.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, and he got married to a woman that was, well, basically an alcoholic. She was a single mother, and she ended up taking him to the cleaners. Basically, got a lot out of it, and will continue to until literally the day he dies. Because guess what? She gets part of his pension, maybe half of it. I can't remember what percentage. So,
Sure.
I mean, think about that. Like, why in the world would a guy who's already been, like, at that point, he had already been married several times. He already had children. Like, why get married? Like, to me, that makes no sense.
Right.
Like, it's like, look, I mean, you're at a not like, I mean, he wasn't like old, like middle aged at that time. How old was he, Tyler, when he got married to that woman?
Let's see, that was in 2000. Let's see, it was 2007. It was right around New Year's, 06 to 07. So he was born in 57 or 56. So he was, I guess he would have been like 51.
Yeah.
He was
Yeah. So
51 when he got
yeah,
married.
so he was like a middle aged man. It's like, why at that point in your life, it's like you have, I mean, you have a grown son who has at that point he already had two kids with Lynn, right? At that point, he would have had, like, yeah,
Rick?
or well, no,
No, well,
Lynn.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So the point is, it does seem to me that the point is there's a large swath of men that are so thirsty that yes,
Mhm.
even in their 40s or in your your sister's father-in-law's case,
correct.
they're so
Yeah.
thirsty, and really I say thirsty, but I actually think that there are deep psychological issues at play. They just can't stay away from women. The proverbial hot stove. You touch the hot stove when you're a 5-year-old, you burn your hand, you learn your lesson. Some of these men, they just don't learn that lesson. They keep burning themselves. I don't know what to say.
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah, that exactly, McTalk Cowboy. And I think also culturally, think about it, for these kind of people, we can think about the fact that they were born in the 1950s. So the model that they were seeing growing up, their parents were usually together for forever. They didn't really see things from the same light. As people get older, their mind often doesn't change. They will just stay to the time when they were, say, around 20 or 20s. And then mentally speaking, they're stuck in that era. And I think that's what happens to a lot of these baby boomers who still continue to get remarried, for instance. Why? It's like, why get married when you're like, you already have kids? There's, in my opinion, there's no reason to, because it's like, see, for me, I look at marriage like, okay, at least in theory, what it was created for. Of course, not anymore, but I think it was created to provide stability for the children. And usually it was understood that, okay, people get married because they're having children. This idea, this idea of someone getting married and then not having children, I think is asinine. It's stupid. And I saw this when I was in St. Petersburg over in Russia, where it's like these there were girls that I knew of where they thought that they should be supported financially, but then they didn't want to have children. So it's like, so you're just being supported for the heck of it. Like, that's not old
They're just
fashioned.
freeloaders.
Yeah. And some of them would claim that they were like old fashioned or some nonsense. It's like, no, you're not. That's not old fashioned. Like, old fashioned, like you'd be, you'd be getting pregnant like more than once. Like you wouldn't be, you'd be having children. And if you refuse that, then guess what? You're out. That was the old fashioned thing. So this idea that like getting married and then having some blue pilled guy supporting you, like that's not old fashioned.
Yeah. Well, and also note that for you, I don't know if I would think that your official name Noble isn't Noble. If you're Portuguese,
Juan.
maybe it is.
Awesome.
What?
Agree.
Yeah.
Oh, Juan is.
If like, so no, MGTOW Cowboy basically comes from the same part of the U.S. that Todd and I spent a lot of years. And MGTOW Cowboy, also being like a truck driver, has experienced like kind of the probably just a lot of different spectrums with drivers. You have some who are full on MGTOWs, others are just totally desperate Sims. There's others who are it's a whole wide range of things that you see now. Like in your country, Portugal, Noble, do you see kind of some of these same trends, or is it a little different over there?
Like simpy dudes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
in
like
the cities
guys
you
that
gotta.
will just sweep in, like with a woman there's a guy who goes by Lunchbox on YouTube. You can type him in, or it's Lunch Visit something. I can link his video, and he swept in and married a woman with like 5 kids. No lie.
Oh my god.
11 years ago, and he got married. Would you see that in Portugal?
Well, Portugal is just like any other Western country. You get simpy dudes doing the cringiest shit, like the simpiest shit. But this is actually an interesting fact. Portugal has the highest divorce rate in the world at 94%. No cap.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Like my father. My father has been married 3 times. First time to my mom, then to a Spanish lady, and now to a Brazilian lady that he met on Facebook like 10 years ago. They're going to celebrate like 9 years of marriage this year. And it's like, you can clearly see that once she has the papers and the passport and everything and all the rights, the kids are already here. And this is quite common. Like, you get a lot of Portuguese dudes actually finding Brazilian women online, paying for their ticket to come here. Then they bring the children, and then they just leave them like years later once they can stay legal in the continent. Then they just fuck off to Germany or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Actually, I knew this a little bit different. This gal from Belarus is horrible, and she wasn't even good looking. You think Belarus, you think some really nice looking like Eastern Slavic girl. At least the girls I was with from like Russia, they were all like at least somewhat attractive. But this girl was not. Like, she was fat. Like, nothing about her was attractive. And she married this guy I worked with from Estonia. He's a Russian speaking Estonian. And she was terrible how she treated him. And she would keep in mind, she was no beauty queen. Like, she was ugly and fat. And she ended up, she wanted to just go to Western Europe and just get residency from him, permanent residency, and then leave. And he put an end to that marriage, thank goodness. But I mean, she was mad. Like, she was like threatening, and the guy wasn't really that muscle bomb. He was really like, he kind of, what he kind of looked like is like a male model. So he had a really slender build, and he actually hit his arm on the wall this one time. and it fractured his bone. So then he had his arm in a cast. He had to go to the hospital because he was so mad at her. At least that's what he told me. Maybe she may have done something like physical and he was too embarrassed by it. Like maybe she broke it. Who knows? But that's what he told me. And in any case, it was horrible. He ended up divorcing her, fortunately, but she was refusing to for a while. That situation, taking over a gal from Brazil over there, terrible choice. Like I would, here in Argentina, I can say this is that I would not take a girl from here to the first world. If the girl wants to go to the first world, all right, be my guest. You can go. I'm not going with you. So go for it. It's like, yeah, that won't be me. I will just stay and do what I'm doing, and you can go for it. But that's not like, to me, it makes no sense because you're going to westernize and propagandize that woman or girl, whatever, give her enough time, and she's just going to morph into that society, if not worse than where she's living, her new adopted society. This happens all the time. We see this in America. Sounds like it happens there in Portugal also, Noble, and I've seen it in other countries.
It's like this isn't just a thing just in the Western world. I mean, this is just human nature. People will only do bad things to you if you allow them to do them to you in the first place. Like for me, I have a lot of God, what's the word? I haven't spoken English in a few days, and so
Me too.
I was bullied.
What's the word in Spanish? What's the word in Spanish?
No, forget about it. I'm on a different metaphor. So okay. I was bullied as a kid for being too skinny and like not being good at football and everything. And it's just that when you have a childhood like that, you get molded into becoming someone who forces himself to make a first impression, just that people in the future don't fuck with you. Like today, I'm like every time I enter into a room, I like the Tyrannosaurus Rex in Jurassic Park busting out of the cage. You know, that's who I am today, because I know that if you are not a savage out here in the streets or in any social setting, like people will just jump on you, and they're not gonna like physically jump on you. It's like a social hierarchy. They're gonna gossip. They're gonna like oh, this guy's low status. Oh, look at him and stuff. And it's just like I'm not homeless. I choose to live in my van, and sometimes I put the inflatable boats in the lake just so people don't mess with me, and I can park like in different spots and stuff. And it's just, yeah, like for example, these passport bros, right? Like these niggas are going to fucking Colombia and they're getting popped one by one.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's. And here's the thing with that also, I would say is personally, I mean, I'll just say this up front that I wouldn't be interested in a country like that, even though I have had some interactions with girls from there, and I could easily, if I wanted to, probably, I mean, have no problem finding a girl in a place like that. I wouldn't be interested in it because it's like, I see, like you had mentioned, like how we see the mongrelization of the races and all this kind of stuff, and I totally agree with you, and I have the same mindset. It's like, and then you see these guys getting themselves into these jams, like you mentioned. They're getting drugged. They're doing just there's all kinds of nonsense occurring, and that's where for me, that's one of the greatest unfortunate things that you see in Latin America is how it has been completely ghettoed out. And I don't know exactly what has caused that. Maybe it's because of the United States or other factors, but essentially Latin America in some ways has turned into like a massive ghetto.
Sure. I'm sorry, you guys are talking about Colombia. I think I can't remember what it's called. I think it's called scopolamine, or they call it angel's breath.
Yes. Yeah.
And they'll put that. They'll, I don't know how they extract it, or they'll put it in your drink or something, and it makes you very permissive to the point where they'll be like,
Yep.
hey, what's the code to your debit card? Let's run over to the ATM.
Exactly, and that's why, like, even for me, I mean, again, if I have if I were to even have the chance to be with the girl from that place, especially if she's from like a big city, or even if she's from a province, she could still be bad, because I've seen this happen with people. It's like you're dealing with these people that are coming from a society that is often very savage, and I think people look at it just from this very rosy lens, not really understanding the ins and outs of a society like that. What is going on in the homes? What is happening in the community? How do people live day-to-day life? How do they look at humans? Do they respect, have like the kind of regard for human life that people from Europe or of European background would have? Probably not. And guys are jumping into that thinking that, well, it'll be better. It's like, yeah, you might get some bedroom action from it, but at the same time, you could also end up losing a lot of money or even your life.
Yeah, no, the real
Absolutely.
truth is, oh boy, it's a minefield right now. It's a minefield. I tell men all the time, we are essentially in a gender war. We're in a gender war. The elites don't like us. You bring up I think you call it the mongrelization of
Yeah.
like white Western countries. That's absolutely true. I think the people that run the world, they don't necessarily hate, like racially hate Europeans. In fact, I think most of them, not all, but most of them are part European or mostly European. But I think that they see something about Europeans that they don't like. I think that they see that Europeans are a type of people who they demand representative government. They demand a high level of healthcare and good jobs, and
Yep.
they they resist tyranny, let's say, more successfully than other groups. So, as a long-term strategy, you can breed them out, and there'll still be a lot of white people, and they'll still breed with the upper crust, and but yes, but I think the goal essentially is to make white European people a minority in every single country in the world, so that they can never be a majority voting bloc, so they cannot resist whatever you want to call it, globalization, authoritarianism, whatever you want to call
Yeah, especially in these like more really hyper developed countries, you see that. Again, maybe I shouldn't, maybe it's not worth my while, but if I can say this, one of these gals I was with last night, she told me that like she preferred people that were of European background. That's what she wanted. Like she preferred people that were of European origin, and she said she's not interested in these like non-whites. And I think hearing that from a like a younger like Gen Z girl, if like in a country like Germany or America or something, you would never hear that, even like in Poland. And I think and again, that's a problem when you drag a person like that out of a third world country and you stick them into a more developed country, they'll become completely subverted over time. And even a gal I had dated here in my back some years ago, she moved to Germany a couple years ago. I mean, a year and a half ago, maybe it was. And I see what's happened to her. Like I see her on Facebook, and she had even this thing posted up about some quote like far right demonstration in Germany. I'm like, far right? There is no, the far right doesn't have any power in Germany. Like
it.
no, I mean, these people, like since Uncle Adolf took Ebola to his head, or since I mean that era ended, there is no such thing as any far. Which I mean, technically that wasn't far right from a. it's more complicated than that. But let's say that people think that's the far right. Okay, there is no far right in Germany that has any real power. And so I see stuff like that and just I see kind of the trajectory of this girl through social media. I'm like, this is awful. When you stick a somewhat decent person, gal, put them in, take them from the third world country and then stick them into these like America, Germany, all these places, just totally messes them up.
Yeah, yeah, right. So it's very strange. I don't know how to look at that. Like it's it's almost like wow, if that's the case, these I'm not saying all of these women, but a large percentage of them, this is what their future this is what their future holds.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to live this lifestyle where they embrace this wokeness, and then when they're hot and they're 20, 22, 24, they're hot and they can do this. Next thing you know, they're going to be 34, and they're let me give you an example. I love using examples. My stepmom is a perfect example. She comes from what you could call like the upper crust. Her father was like an award-winning architect. Her mother was a medical doctor, who actually went back to university and then got her second doctorate or PhD. She became a psychoanalyst. So, she's obviously, not just like middle class, she's like upper middle class. She was a raging feminist. Um, and then, she swore off having kids. She swore, she's very, very liberal. And then in her mid 40s, she decided, you know what, I do want to have children. And my father and my stepmom spent a lot of money on what's it called, IVF, or in vitro fertilization.
Mm-hmm.
And after several rounds, they got lucky or they had success and they had a kid. But the point is, um, you know, she said one thing her whole life. She said one thing, and that is that she
Mm-hmm.
doesn't want to have kids, and she believed in all these, failed leftist policies. Next thing you know, she's become more conservative. Now she does want to have kids. Uh, now she wants to move to an area from. Now she wants to move to an area with what you could say. She wants to move to an area with less diversity, if you will. And it's just amazing. But a lot of
Mm-hmm.
these women, they're not going to have that opportunity. They're not going to be able to afford IVF. They're not going to be able to leave or relocate, and then they're essentially walking themselves into misery. That's how I see it.
Absolutely. Well, and I was going to add something too. Right as you came on, MGTOW Cowboy, like one has to do in Rome with, like the act as like the ways in Rome. So, like for example, what Noble was talking about with like that person who had like the polished nails and stuff, like most like people with any amount of common sense, and this could I guess go both ways for guys and gals, would know that if you're walking into like one of these really high end like cities of like in Switzerland, I mean imagine the kind of guys that those gals would have access to like date, even if they weren't like that serious about it. So thinking that you could be kind of this like weird like back or something like and maybe for that guy he was better off just going somewhere like Thailand or something where he could be like covered in mud and still have like three girls to bed that same day. But obviously that's not like that in Switzerland. And I think that's just one of those illustrations of a disformed well, firstly, it's trying to use like an identity or a passport to flex on, which I'm still tired of. It gets really tiring after a while. And I think this I was going to bring this up because I think this ties into kind of what we were discussing with the like we could be in the last like decade or two of these American women getting these very optimal passports that basically provide them everything. And as you said, MGTOW Cowboy, there's no question that, yeah, those IVF treatments and all that. And also, what happens if the child, in many cases, when women have children that old, they can have birth defects or not even, I mean,
Right.
they might be stillborn and stuff. So
Right. The chances for
it's
all sorts of maladies, the chances for all sorts of complications and maladies goes way up. But
oh yeah.
in the case of my parents, they got really lucky. My half sister is very, very smart. She's probably the
Hmm.
best of us. She was valedictorian of her grammar school. She was on honor roll in high school.
Wow.
She made it and has since graduated from the University of Chicago, very, very prestigious university.
Oh yeah.
Um, but yeah, again, on the macro, like things are looking really bad.
Yeah.
I see it as sort of like I actually think we're in like a collapse kind of situation. I don't think that this is going to last much longer.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. So,
And you're a Gen Xer, right, MGTOW Cowboy?
I just turned 40 a couple months ago. I don't
Okay,
know
so
if
older
Millennial.
millennial.
He's
really old.
millennial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm an old
Hmm.
millennial, I think. Yeah.
Wow.
What I tell men, what I push, especially for men my age or younger, is essentially financial empowerment. I think a lot of I think MGTOW men, or you call it whatever you want, maverick capitalist types or nomad capitalist types or red pill types. We can I don't know what the term circumvent, maybe fly above. We can fly above a lot of these problems if we set ourselves free financially. And I think that that should be of I don't know what to call it. That we should be very focused on economic empowerment, because the second we get enough money, we can. I mean, if you really want, you can have a child. Todd says he wants to have a white child. Hey, if that's what he wants, and so do I. Well, guess what? I had mentioned this earlier in the stream.
Mhm.
It's very unfortunate what's going on in the Ukraine. I would not wish that on any nation, but when this war
Just give
eventually
me a moment. You can continue.
oh yeah, when
Yeah.
this war does eventually wrap up, there's a huge shortage of men in that country already. Unfortunately, the war is depleting the men. There's going to be a lot of single women. You can pay. It's called surrogacy. You pay a woman 20 grand, 30 grand. She'll carry your kid, and you got a kid. Nowadays, we have all sorts of, I don't know, all these procedures. They can perform tests to find out what the gender or what the sex of the child is, what the color of the hair, the color of the eyes, but before the child's even born. So I mean, it there's problems, of course, but I like to put it this way: where there's a will, there's a way. But you're not going to
Yeah.
get ahead if you don't have any money. So figure out how to make money.
Yeah. If I can say also something I would keep in mind, MGTOW Cowboy, is that I think the Russians, they already put an end to the surrogacy in their country. And I think once they have fully either neutralized all of Ukraine or whatever portion they wish to neutralize, I think they're going to really put a clamp on that kind of stuff. So that is
Okay,
something to
that is news to me. My understanding before you just said that is the the ultimate place to go for surrogacy was Ukraine, and then
yeah.
penultimate to that was Russia. So I didn't know that. I thought Russia still allowed legal surrogacy.
No, they got rid of that. So it's unfortunate because obviously it pretty much means like I mean
What
it's
it does, see what it does is it transfers all the power to the woman.
yeah.
It takes away the man's ability to reproduce,
Yeah.
and it transfers that power completely to the woman. That's how I
Yeah.
see it.
No, unless the guy's down for like going with a non European, which for me, again, I have no problem with these people, but I just I couldn't I just can't see that. It would not be acceptable for me to have offspring that were certainly not of European origin. I would prefer that they were of Northern European, but I've talked about the disaster of Northern European and people of Northern European origin. So more likely it would be some other European background. But it's like the situation is such that it's like, yeah, you can get your dime a dozen Filipina or something, But do I want a kid who's like half Filipino? No. I mean, I'm just going to be honest about it. Some guys
No,
don't
no,
care.
that's fine. No, that's fine, and that's
Yeah.
not racist. That's
Yeah.
not race. I mean, I understand that we're told that that's racist, but that's not. That's not. I have this idea that the powers that be, they want to make it as hard as possible for especially white, European. The classic is like a straight white Christian man to have any power over society. So that's how I see it. So
Mhm.
you could say the entire West, but I'm just talking about America. The way I see it is we're being systematically dispossessed of our power, of our cultural power, financial power, and so we gotta move differently. You know what white men
Yeah.
have to do? Now I say this to all men. I say this to all men, but
Yeah.
in this case, we're talking about white men. We need to become a lot more slick, a lot more savvy,
Mhm.
and you guys are talking about it in the stream. A lot of white guys are just they're dumb. They're on their third
Mhm.
marriage, or they're bringing what this gentleman Noble, he knows people that'll bring. I guess he lives in Portugal. These European Portuguese men, they'll bring over these women from I guess Brazil.
Brazil, yeah, and
I
they're
don't know.
not
I don't
like,
know.
not to interject. These are
Oh, go
not like,
ahead. Oh, go
because
ahead.
you have like a European breed of Brazilians, and I wouldn't imagine most of these are like those southern Brazilian ones of mostly European origin. They're probably those like black ones or more the indigenous kind. Is that correct, Noble?
Sorry, what was that?
The Brazilians that they're bringing over, these guys are probably not the ones that are mostly of like European stock. They're probably mostly of that like indigenous or Indo-African
Oh
background.
God. So my new stepmother, right? She
Mhm.
looks like so indigenous. It is ridiculous. Like God,
Like Pocahontas,
I,
I guess.
dude, I don't even know how to describe her. She looks like a mix between. It's not even like between black or white. She looks like a proper like cave woman, you know?
Like the Australian, the Aboriginal people of
Yeah,
Australia, something
yeah,
like that.
yeah. I was in Australia, but those people are like they look even like more like primitive. But the South Americans, like the native South Americans, they're a little bit more advanced looking. But it's still you see a huge difference, really. And
Hmm.
it's not racist. It's like a cowboy was saying over here. It's just biology. Like I'm a European. I don't want to have a kid with chinky eyes who's gonna get his ass kicked every day at school.
Yeah.
Yeah, trust me, I totally agree. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I went to Argentina, because of the Latin American countries. I mean, Argentina is really the only option now where if you want someone that is actually 100% or 90% plus of European origin, this is really where you have to go. I mean, this.
Well,
Um,
now hold on. Now that's not true. You're right. You're right.
mhm,
Argentina definitely has a large European influx, but there are
yeah.
pockets. For example, I can't remember if it's Paraguay or Uruguay. Same thing. They have a very large percentage of European admixture. It's like over 70 or 80%. I
Mhm.
was recently doing research. Costa Rica is another perfect example. If you compare, let's say, Costa Rica to Guatemala, Guatemala is like 90% indigenous. Like the people
Yeah.
there, the average person there is like 5'4", with kind of dark skin. They look very indigenous, very
Hmm.
Indian. I don't consider the word Indian racist, but I guess nowadays
No,
it's sort of
it's
considered racist. Indigenous, Native American, Native American Indian, whatever. But 2 countries away, it's the exact opposite. Something like 80% of the population is mostly European. And you said it yourself. I think it was Todd. I think it was Todd who said it. It's mostly Southern European, like Italian,
yeah.
Portuguese, Spanish. But it is mostly European. So there are pockets. There are places that you can go. It's not just Argentina. When I think of Argentina, I don't know. It's mostly like what Europeans settled there? Spanish and Italians, right? There.
Yeah,
And
mostly
French.
like yeah, generally the biggest percentage was Italians, and then there were like Spanish, Portuguese, Germans. There were also some others like Jews, Armenians, and of course there are indigenous people, or there are people that have mixture of blood in them. I don't know why I seem to attract either gals that are like proper, like totally ethnically, like, I mean, 100% European Argentines, or these like really like usually like ugly like indigenous ones where it's like, I mean, of course those ones are sometimes easy, but of course they're also dumb as can be. And I guess they're probably used to meeting some guys from the US or other Western countries that might be interested in that. It's like, I'm not interested in that. It's like, I mean, I want like, I don't, for like, for me, it's like, why? If that's what I want, I could just be in America or something. It's not, nothing personal. It's just that I don't want a kid that looks so different from me that the kid can't even be recognized by the father, that like the father doesn't even look like him. And I know some people might be like, oh, well, yeah, the kid kind of has some of the characteristics of the dad. But it's like, no, he really doesn't look that much like the dad. If the mom's like Asian or African or something, kid doesn't really look like the dad.
Yeah, and like,
Again,
do you remember? Oh, sorry,
Oh,
were you
I'm
guys
sorry,
saying?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think you were around MGTOW Cowboy. Like, I don't know how long have you been on this channel, Nobel?
Sorry, what?
How long have you been following my channel for? How many years?
I remember sitting at a hotel in Chisinau, Moldova, in the around Christmas 2021, and you were making videos, and you were still in Estonia.
Okay, so let's see, 2021. Okay, so there was a guy, I think Big Tail Cowboy might remember him. His name was Mark Thornton. He has a YouTube channel, Every Man Has a Story, and he had actually,
Yes,
we had done an interview. Yeah, and it's very interesting, kind of a guy like him, his progression. It kind of goes back to something we were discussing like a half an hour ago. He at this point is married, and he's actually going to be having a child like at 69 or 70.
Right.
Now, I mean, I don't know. Like, I guess people have personal ideals on that, but it's like, for me, there's just a whole mirage of issues there. And like, if I email him at this point, he will not respond. So I never had like any major falling out. I don't know if you saw his most recent video, MGTOW Cowboy. He was actually in a physical confrontation, like a couple weeks ago in a fist fight.
No, I didn't catch that one. My understanding is he's I think he's an American. He was really, really big into like cruise ships. He worked on cruise ships. He ended up eventually settling in the Philippines. He met a girl there. I guess he eventually got married. And now he mostly does interviews with mostly European. I shouldn't say European, but like white people, American and European and Australian, like expats that come there and live there.
Yeah, and I mean, you can even see it kind of that metamorphosis. If I were to have contacted him now on his channel, I don't think we would. He most certainly would not have. Like, after looking through some of my videos, he would certainly have declined doing like interview, and it would have just, because I shortly after, like, this was like a couple years ago, I had brought up some of my ideals. Like, you remember that one big YouTuber from Canada, Lena Mikliad?
No, I'm sorry, I don't recall.
I have brought up like her like adventures, I guess you would call them. She's like our age. She's like 31, and she's like one of these like quote independent women travelers that goes all over the place. And she ended up being robbed in Colombia, South America of all places.
Nice.
Yeah, this was like 2 years ago, and I had brought up like, oh, like that's what this independent female like mindset gets you, and like that was one of the major things that kind of made like where he really just, I think, started despising me, like my ideals on this stuff.
What's funny too with that is that I think there was even a guy who had offered to kind of help her out or show her around or something. Of course, he was some, I guess, quote, lower status Colombian guy or something, but he had offered to her to like kind of help her out or something. Because he knew it was really dangerous, and of course she either didn't respond to him or turned him down or something. And it's like, this is Colombia. Like, what are you thinking? Like,
Right.
but this is how stupid, and this is the degree of arrogance and narcissism
There you
of
go.
these Western women and these Western originated women that literally they're putting their life on the line because they're that narcissistic and they're that delusional
There you
with
go. There
reality.
you go. It's
It's
the
like,
perfect it's the perfect mix of narcissism and delusion. And there's case
yeah,
after case of this. There's this lady that you speak of. Did she do any research at all? I remember learning. This is already an old stat from like over 10 years ago. It wasn't Colombia like the world capital of kidnappings for many
I think
years.
so.
They cleaned it up
Yeah,
a little
yeah, it
bit, but
was.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's still very dangerous in some areas. There were those two. I think they were Swedish women who, what they traveled to some mountain. I think in Morocco. Of course, they ended up being
I
violently
remember.
violated, and I think they were killed. There was a couple, a man and a woman, American. I think they were cyclists. They wanted to prove that that there was human. They wanted to fight intolerance or something. So they went on some sort of
Oh
bicycle
my
trip around the
God.
world, and they were abducted and executed in the Middle East, and they purposely went to the Middle East to show how tolerant the people there are and all this. And I don't, just delusion. It's just pure delusion.
It's like this. Like they say in all the surveys, and I have to agree to a sense that Switzerland is in the top 5, maybe top 3, maybe number 1 safest countries in the world. And I got tweakers trying to break into my van around the biggest city where there's a lot of patrols. Like, of course, the rest of the world is going to be way more dangerous.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's seeing how things are. It's really it's incredible, and I can't wait to see the moment when these Western women truly are having to suffer the demise of their own policies. Unfortunately, many men are also going to be affected. It's going to be probably like what you see here in Argentina. There's going to be hyperinflation.
Right.
Most people are going to be broke, miserable, and I can guarantee you suicide rate will just skyrocket in America. It will be like nothing that people have ever seen before, I think. And of course, at that point, it's going to, you're still, trust me on this, the women that are already grown are still probably, some of them are still going to have this delusion like they're the greatest thing ever, even literally as they're starving or having to prostitute themselves out to make a few dollars. And what comes after them, well, who knows? But it's,
Yeah, and that's kind of too what I find so fascinating. I don't know how much it's like this noble for you in Portugal, but like here in the U.S., the mindset and the um, ideal of America from like person to person or group of people, like this group compared to like some um, totally different group. I mean, it's radically different. Like the perception, the quote greatness of America, the everything. It's so different when you go from like group to group, and you really analyze this. And is it like the same way in Portugal? Like if where there's like a perception difference of the country from one person to the next?
It's mostly like a generational thing. So the boomers, they still believe that, if I work 50 years for this corporation, I'm going to be rewarded or something. And it's like, oh, these people care about me. Delusion. Then you have people
Yeah.
our age. I'm a little bit older than both of you. I just turned 32.
Okay.
But so I don't even know if that's Gen. I think that's I'm just a millennial or something. So
Yeah.
people our age, we are more inclined to question things because we either grew up with the internet or we got it around our teens and stuff. So I would say people our age in my country, they are definitely red pill aware. That like the youngsters, throughout the country. I live in a very small country, but they don't do shit with the knowledge that they with the wisdom that they learn. They don't apply it at all. They just think, oh, maybe if I play my cards right, oh, I'll know what to do. But it's like foresight trumps hindsight. They think I'll play the game, and then if something happens, I'll take the necessary precautions or whatever. No, asshole. You just take action before and prepare for the consequences before you take said action. This is why the Sun Tzu wrote the greatest book of all time, The Art of War.
Exactly.
So no,
so
it's not. There's not a lot. It's more from generation to generation, and then I would say they call these teenagers from now the Generation Alpha, which I think it's a bunch of bullshit because they're a bunch of pussies anyway. Like these iPad kids. Like, it's gonna be so easy to mug these kids for money in the future when all this shit goes like south. You know what I mean? Oh my god.
Yeah. Well, and I work in a school setting, and I mean, I see just the absolute demise of America. I'll let Todd continue with this, and I mean, I'll just say this. I mean, the Gen Z gals in the U.S. absolutely just disgust me at this point. Like in the States, I mean, I that's a whole different topic for another time. But I'll let you continue, Todd.
Yeah, well, Gonzalo Lira, I think, could have used your quote "noble savage" because when he was in Ukraine, like I could see the to use your name, like the last part of it, the savages that were many Ukrainians, I could see them for what they were. And I if I were Gonzalo Lira, I don't know if he didn't realize or what reason, like just how ruthless they would be toward him. But like, I mean, the situations I had when I was over in like Poland, I was like, I don't want to live in Ukraine ever. Like, I got so disgusted with people from there, just the way they treated me and stuff. It was like, no way. And
I'm sorry, when you say people, do you mean women or you mean also the men? Just in general?
just in general, especially the women, extremely disrespectful and belligerent. And what I saw of the Ukrainians just absolutely disgusted me. And I think sometimes with Putin, he can't be honest and say what these people are. Like, he has to act like it's like, oh, we're going to help them. But in reality, he knows this, that if they don't dominate them, the Ukrainians will be a huge menace for them in the future. So he says, of course, so we're here to help them. But I think in some ways it's more like we're here to dominate over them so they don't try to destroy us like they want to do. And so my thought, like on that quote you said with Sun Tzu, is perfect with a guy like him, because I don't know if he didn't realize just how ruthless they would be toward him. And I think he miscalculated. He underestimated just how bad it could be for him. I don't know if he totally believed in what he was saying, but when he would say that the Ukrainians are such nice people, blah, 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 I'm like, no, they're not such nice people. Like, this is, I mean, at least not my experience with them. Like, these people are going to go for your head, like, or go for your neck. How does it first go for your neck?
Well, anyway, but he's an international politician. Of course, he's not. Yeah, of course, he's going to say, what's. He's going to be very politically correct here. I mean, okay.
And he still died. So it's really I think a reality check, and that's why the quote by Sun Tzu would be applicable there. That you can't underestimate your enemy. You have to know your enemy, and I think that's a perfect example of it.
Yeah, Matt posted that. I mean, this is very relevant. Had a Latin American disposition with an American boomer entitlement mentality or attitude. Not a good combo. What do you folks think of that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it is interesting because, again, that I think that's actually a good way to put it. Like, it was funny too. He would even say how he was in typical Chilean fashion. He would talk about like his German heritage. It's like, dude, you're like what, like 5% German? Like, I don't know why it's so common for Chileans. I shouldn't be saying this. I know he's dead now, or deceased, but Tyler knows this because Tyler, I think, had even mentioned this to me. It's really common for Chileans. They'll be like 5% German or something, and they won't. I mean, they'll look like more like indigenous or something, and they'll be talking about how they're German. It's like, I don't know. For me, it's kind of funny, but
Absolutely. So I'm just curious, Noble. Like, this is a bit off, but so when your dad got married to the Brazilian, did he ask, like, did he get your feedback on the situation, or was it just something he proceeded forward? Did you ask him why he was going this direction?
No, because I was already 23 years old, so I had no saying in the matter because I was out of the house. I left when I was 20 to backpack around the continent and then the world.
I gotcha. Yeah, and since then, has it worked out for him or not so much?
Oh my God, it's like she's really good at subtlety with her gold digging ways, but her daughter, who's already here, and her daughter got married within a month of landing over here.
Wow.
And she got pregnant. Yeah, she got pregnant. They already have 2 kids. And it's I pointed out to my father, don't you think this is strange? And my father, like, he got pissed. Like, he pulled me over to the side and said, hey, don't threaten what I have over here. I worked very hard for this. And I'm like, dude, you have so much to lose if this goes wrong. Don't you realize that? And he just said, like, he blocked me on everything. And it took him a few years to unblock me and come to me and say, son, every day I notice things that don't quite make sense. And if I mistreat you in the past, I'm really sorry. I think when everything is legal, she's just going to fuck off and he's going to be heartbroken and he's probably going to try to get married a 4th time. And
he deserves it. I'm sorry to say it. He deserves it.
No, dude, like my dad is a cuck. I mean, not a cuck like he's a cuckold, but he's so deluded. Like, he just doesn't know any better. It's actually sad.
I don't know. I think that could be. My father's very similar. My father has his master's degree. He's a smart guy, but and he's a warrior type ethos. He was a United States Marine. He was a Chicago police officer. He was a federal aviation officer until he retired. He's smart, and he was when he was young. He was tough, but when it comes to women, see, and a lot of men are like this. Most men are not like us, the 4 of us talking. A lot of men, they can't, they don't know how to say no to women. There's something going on. I think it's deeply psychological.
Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's fine. Go ahead. No, I was basically finished, but just to finish up. I think a lot of these men, like your dad, like my dad, they know that these women are manipulating them, but they're so desperate for female validation or love or what they think is love. They're willing to put up with a lot of abuse, and men like us, we won't.
I just, like what you said right now really resonated with me when you said, even if these guys are like old, maybe well off or something, are in a good position with a good job, like they're so like they just clueless about women. And this is like Switzerland has like the richest Europeans, but however, these guys, they don't know shit about female nature. Like, I was over there for the first time in 2015. I was, I think, 24, and I was hitchhiking because I was broke as shit. I had just broken off with an ex-girlfriend from the north of Italy, and this guy picked me up with a Mercedes, and it's like everyone has a nice car over there, even if people like live below their means. Like even if people make good money, like they get a car that almost cannot afford just to impress people because they're so empty like in their lives. So this guy was telling me that he was going on seminars and like watching like public speakers, like to learn how to be a better conversationalist and to be like better with social skills. And his guy was like in his late 30s, and he said, I always struggled with people, and especially with women, and I just I'm still learning. I've been doing it for many years, and when I told him about like my life, what I was doing with like very little money, and that I was getting like meeting all these backpacker bitches and like females and stuff, and he just couldn't believe it. It's like, but I have a Mercedes, but I'm going to all these seminars and listening to all these podcasts and audiobooks, and now I push myself so much, and a guy like you with no money gets all this attention and success, and I'm like, sorry, I don't know what to tell you. And then he tells me that in Switzerland it's quite common. The men over there, they downgrade themselves to a point where they can't express who they truly want to be. So they just grow up very introverted, like they get dumbed down, and it's so sad because they're all very good professionals. They work very hard. A lot of them are on medication and on drugs just to cope. And I mean, a lot of guys are like this, not in just in like, I guess in America it's also like this, no?
Right. Yeah. And also what's funny too is like where these situations where, frankly, for me, I actually didn't feel too good after them, but where I had experiences with gals where, like, especially in Argentina, where I was like totally broke when I lived here before. And I had kind of similar experience to you, Noble, or where, like where a girl would be with a guy for a long time, and that guy probably would have to put in like a lot of work to get her maybe, and she'd be opening her legs within like the first night of meeting or something. Now keep in mind that girl probably didn't really wouldn't stick around, but sometimes I did think to myself that I wonder what the last guy she was with had to do in order to like win her over, whereas like literally I can just like talk with her for like 10 minutes or something. And what the other guy before had to probably bend over backwards for, it does kind of come to show that, yeah, I mean, with these guys, it's makes no sense to me. Like, why is it? And what is it that makes them think that that's just going to make things better? But I think it's also something I noticed in the European Union, Noble, that I noticed this living in like in Poland and in Estonia, like just overall, it seems to me like for instance, like a guy has to look like really polished, like, you know, wear like the right clothes, have the right haircut, drive the right car. And so I think it's almost been kind of ingrained in the society, especially over there in the EU, where the society is really shallow and commercialistic. And if you don't fit a certain profile, oh, I'm not interested. You have no chance. Maybe I'm just overthinking it, but that's what it seemed like to me living over there.
No, it's very interesting that you mentioned Poland because I think a lot of Americans think of Poland as this like poor country with like hot women and stuff, but Poland is not poor. Like their economy has been growing like very fast the last decade, and I think people, I would say that applies more to countries like Romania and Bulgaria, because in all the European Union, the Romanians and Bulgarians are like the roughest Europeans in the Union, and those guys are afraid of the Moldovans, like the guys who cannot get any Romanian like puniti. They go over to Moldova because it's cheaper and the women are like easier and stuff. And they say that the guys over there are like animals, you know, like they protect their women. They're like really like, I don't want to say controlling, because my last girlfriend, she said I was controlling. I was just like saying that I have boundaries, and that's what those guys are doing. Like these are our women in our country, and we're not gonna let some faggot come over here like with lower testosterone than me and take my bitches. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, exactly. It's crazy to me. It's weird too how these people have like no like they have no standards in the West, but then in these non-Western countries, like even when I was in Georgia, Armenia, it was impossible trying to date women in those countries. They're like Middle Eastern people, and it was like impossible, like no luck. And meanwhile, I shouldn't be saying this, but I briefly was dating a girl who was of, I'll just say, Russian origin, but she was a little overweight, and for her, like she like guys were just drooling over her, and to me, she's like, yeah, she looks okay. I mean, she needs to lose weight. Like I wouldn't like here in Argentina, heck no, I wouldn't even like think about going out with a girl like her. But it was so hard in Georgia. It was so lousy, the dating. That was another country where it was really bad. I mentioned Estonia, also really bad in those Caucasus countries as well, Georgia, Armenia, etc. And at least if you're like a white or European guy, maybe it's easier if you're like Asian or something. But
Was it? Can I ask, Noble? Was that you that said you've been to Estonia and Czech Republic?
Yeah, dude, I've been to
Some-
every country. I've been to every country in Europe except
Russia.
Belarus, Russia,
Okay.
and Ireland, because Ireland just never did anything for me. I
So
never found it interesting.
you didn't fare too well with the Estonians, I see. Well, how many years ago was
This was in 2016, I believe. I was volunteering in a hostel that since has been closed. It was called Euphoria Hostel, like near the square.
I remember,
Um,
yeah, I know the name.
and it's like so many backpackers are going there because it was starting to get very popular. And I went for a glass of water in a bar, and the chick almost refused to give it to me because the establishment was not going to benefit anything from it.
wow, it sounds very Estonian.
And you know what? I met another chick over there who, no cap, was rude to a point where I had to give my palm, like the palm of my hand, a sunburn, if you know what I mean.
Wow.
Because these bitches, they never, they think like just because you're a foreigner, you come from like a more civilized country where people don't, like follow the equal rights, equal lefts golden rule. But once they get a taste of that, like it really shakes their foundations. It makes them question their worldview, and they get in line instantly. I'm not
Right.
saying that guys should do this, but
No.
there's going to
You
come to a
should.
point. There's going to come to a point where more and more men are going to do this, and you're going to see females' behavior getting more and more, let's just say, less obnoxious because they know that that's a potential consequence.
See,
Yeah.
this is the problem. You see, men have been so emasculated. I have this idea that this isn't just the last 50 years, or third wave feminism, or neoliberalism. This has been happening for hundreds of years. Really, I mean, you could say it's probably several hundred, at 4, 5, 6. Look, let me give you an example. I love using examples. 2,000 years ago, during the Roman Empire, marriage existed. All right, it was a legal contract, but there was no Catholic Church per se. Marriage was an agreement, mostly between the families, and then over time the church got involved, and then within hundreds of years it became a thing mostly with the church, and then hundreds and hundreds of years later it became, now it's mostly in agreement with the government, not even the church.
Absolutely.
Back in Roman times, by law, a husband could murder his wife. He could kill her if she stepped out of line. All the laws favored the man. Well, 21 centuries later, now it's the exact opposite. We still call it marriage, but it's actually something entirely different. Now, the caricature of a man and a woman getting married is a man on his knees giving a woman a ring, giving a woman a ring, giving a woman a diamond. The whole
It's
diamond thing,
repulsive to me.
well, it should be. De Beers, this company, and I think it was South Africa, this diamond company, they put on a big marketing campaign, and decades later, this is normalized now. That a man should spend what is it, 3 months of his salary buying a woman a rock. Diamonds are not even that. They're not even that rare, is my understanding. So I think
Mhm.
over slowly, men have just been emasculated to the point where every single social interaction, it's made so that the woman has dominance. When in the past, I mean, that's not how it was. If a woman even spoke to you improperly, you'd crack her right in the face, and it would bring her back to reality real quick. But men have been so emasculated to the point now where, and the women know this. They
Mhm.
know this, and they can feel it. They can feel it in their, well, it really in their genetics. They know that they dominate us, and they have a certain sexual attraction to men who don't put up with that shit.
Mhm. Oh yeah, and it's so bad. I mean, if you've been, I mean, here in the deep south, that's kind of the ironic part of it. Like, I mean, I think a lot of guys are like naturally like tough here, but at the same time, they are so simpish. Like, it's just like on a different level, and like you see how it impacts these gals in Florida, and it's just pathetic, honestly. Like that's all I will say is the way. I mean, I don't know how it looks now, Novo in Portugal, but I gotta say that like all I will say is this is that like as MGTOW Cowboy was saying, I mean marriage is most definitely a contract with the government. It is not a like a religious like institution. I mean it is just a handcuff, another handcuff to the government, and it doesn't surprise me why a lot of military guys and cops seem to still like getting married a lot in the US because I guess they're like used to being kind of cuffed to the state, as I tell people. It's
Well,
unfortunate.
if I may,
Mhm.
you brought up an interesting word. I think you said handcuffs.
Mhm.
Here's your trivia for the day. I don't know if this is the same in the Portuguese language, but I know in Spanish, the word for handcuffs and the word for wife is the same word. Did you know that?
Yep. Yep, I knew that.
No,
Yeah.
it's not in Portuguese. We say algema y mulher. It's different.
Oh wow.
Oh,
Okay. Right. I know Portuguese and Spanish is very similar, but yeah, it's a different language. Yeah. No, in Spanish, it's esposa and esposas. Esposa's
hmm.
wife, esposas are handcuffs, and that should tell you right there. I mean, we even have the axiom in English. To to you better lock him down, or to
Mhm.
get tied down in a marriage. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. To
Anyway,
then
listen, I'm
destroy
sorry.
him.
I do need to get going. It was a great thank you very much for having me. If I can just add one more point very quickly. Not Todd, I'm sorry. Tyler.
Yeah.
Tyler.
Tyler, yeah.
Tyler. Yeah, no. I really want to make the case, if I can, that you should consider the trades. I
Mhm.
really think you're above, retailer. I don't know what you're doing for money these days, but there's a big need for truckers, man, and
Oh yeah.
you might want to consider that. And then lastly, I just wanted to say, men, uh, this is essentially a message to all men. In this particular case, Todd was talking about like you white, like European men. This goes for all men, but in this case, we're talking about European white men.
Mhm.
European white men. We need to start moving. We need to start moving differently. All this feminism is after us. There's a certain percentage of these women, they are after us. They want to dispossess us of our power. And there's a gender war. First thing we
Mhm.
need to do is we need to realize that there's a problem, and then after that we need to start taking steps. And I tell all the young men I know, don't get married, don't absolutely don't get married, and move to an area if you have to, that is more in line with your cultural beliefs.
Mhm.
I live in Chicago, but I plan on moving to southern Indiana. to a city called
100%.
Evansville. It's
Okay,
much
I know.
more Republican. It's much
Mhm.
more conservative. It's like I think it's like 90% white. You know,
Mhm.
if that's what you're looking for, you know, do that. You know, um, I think it's going to get much worse before it gets better. So
Indeed.
That's a good
And
point.
one
I'll
question:
leave it at that. Oh, I'm sorry.
Have you ever been married before, MGTOW Cowboy?
No, no,
Okay.
not at all. But I saw, like again, like to reiterate, I saw what happened to my father. My father,
Mhm.
he got married to my father. My father was born in Mexico. He's like what you'd call a mestizo. He's like half white, half indigenous.
Mhm.
Um, he looks mostly white, but he has a slightly darker skin. You could say he looks like a Spaniard or maybe like an
Mhm.
Italian or something. And he married a Nordic woman, a German woman. So all of his kids, or my sisters and I, we're all very sort of Caucasian looking. We all have light eyes, light skin. So I consider myself like white. He married a Nordic white woman, and she was very feminist. If you know anything, this is especially strong 30, 40 years ago, but it's even, I guess, no, I take that back. It's even stronger today. The white women in America are very, very feminist. Back then,
Absolutely.
Mexican women were extremely traditional.
Okay.
And I suppose, but anyway, I say all that to say this. He married a white woman, my mom. My mom was very feminist, and she divorced him. She took his house. He had a paid off house. He had two multi-unit investment properties. She took everything. The 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 entire familial estate was awarded to her. And then, of course, because of gross financial malfeasance, or I'm sorry, I'll try to be nice. Because of her lack of financial acumen, she
Mhm.
lost everything.
Oh.
So yeah, no, my family's entire fortune, which was considerable, was lost. The way I see it, it was lost because of feminism. My mom was
Yep.
taught this BS, grievance culture. My father, ultra conservative Catholic Mexican, moves here, finds a woman, thinks, oh wow, I found me a beautiful blonde. This is great. I'm gonna have beautiful white kids. Everything's gonna be great. No, 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 no. Feminism came in. She divorced him. All the money was lost. And so I tell young men, especially white men, you got to move differently. Don't get married. You'll end up like my dad. He had to start all over at like 42. It totally ruined him, you know.
Mhm.
So I will never make that mistake. My goal now is to maximize my potential in trucking. I just completed my first year in trucking. Probably
Well,
gonna get my
congrats.
hazmat. Yeah, and I recommend you do the same thing. And you're much younger than me. If you do it
Mhm.
now, by the time you're my age, you could retire. Get into trucking. I recommend get your hazmat, get your tanker, and then either open up your own company, buy a truck,
Mhm.
or just get in with a good union job. Um, and then 10 years later you'll be a millionaire. And if you want, you could ruin your life and get married, or you can get or go through surrogacy.
Mhm.
Find like a white woman in like a Nordic country, probably like
Mhm.
Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia. I don't know, and then try to do it that way. So
Mhm.
I don't know. Gentlemen. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I have to leave, but it was a pleasure, Tyler, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah, it was awesome.
and tell Todd I said hi. It looks like he's offline right now, but
He should be back any moment. He, I think, just had someone that came to his door.
oh right,
But
just if I can, just for a second,
yeah.
if I can throw that back at you, have you
Mhm.
considered any? Have you given any thought to maybe the trades? Being a welder, electrician, trucker, HVAC, anything like that?
Well, yeah, that is actually what I was going to do twice. First was trucking back in 2021 when I left Estonia. And the second time was just this past year. I was trying to go into electrician, but I could not get into any kind of paid program. Now, granted, I could have paid to go into a program, or there's some other mechanisms, but yeah, definitely have looked at it.
What do you mind me asking? What are you doing? What are you doing now for money? Are you still in retail?
No, it's actually very ironic you mentioned that. I work in education now.
Oh,
And I say it's ironic because obviously it's kind of like this is not a video stream I would show with most of the people I work with.
yeah. I was gonna say you got to be careful. Increasingly, you might not want to
When
show
I
your face.
Well, let's put it this way: it's the students that I have, it's like some of the guys' students I would trust a lot more than these bimbos that I work with.
Yeah,
I
that's
wouldn't,
that's
you
the
know.
problem though. Like who are you working with, right? Obviously, we all know, or those in the know,
Hmm.
in the education sector, in this country, probably in most Western nations,
Hmm.
um, most most educators are now women. Isn't that right?
Yep.
Are you working in like a university setting or a high school
High
setting or?
school, high
Oh
school.
wow. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Be
Yeah.
careful. Be careful. I
Oh,
mean, look. Let's be honest. If the provost, or I'm sorry, that'd be college. If
yeah.
the principal or the dean, someone saw
Hmm.
you, they could report this, and they would say you're a misogynist. You could lose your job.
Absolutely. Exactly. And that's unfortunate. Yeah, that's the reality. It's an issue when I took it. It was more of a like temporary kind of situation because if you know anything here in West Florida, I mean the job market is absolutely terrible. It's absolutely
Right.
like I mean crap unless you're working like you own a business, you work in the medical sector, maybe you're a truck driver, something like that can it most certainly can work, but it was not like intended for like a long term like
Oh, right, right, right.
destination.
Right,
But
right, right. Yeah, no, and you're still, relatively young. I mean, yeah, no,
yeah,
if I could just make that case again, I recommend you get into trucking. Do a couple
yeah,
months,
like
a couple months
mhm,
over the road, and then quit, and then get a local job. I make it's an on average. I
mhm.
make 1,000 a week. Sometimes it's
Yeah,
1,100, sometimes it's 12, but a nice low average is 1050. I make at least one stack a week. I mean, I'm
mhm.
not saying that that's a lot of money, but that's you know
Yeah, I
that's uh,
think
that's okay.
yeah, and it's how it's being generated and what you're doing. Like I mean, if something happens, you probably can get another job, and it doesn't matter. You don't have any like verbal police or something where you'd have to
Right,
be
right, right,
worried
exactly.
about
See,
stuff.
that's why I really like trucking. That's why I tell men,
Mhm.
the trades are a very welcoming atmosphere for men. You don't have to
Can
look
I?
over your shoulder every 5 minutes. The PC police are going to get you.
Well, yeah, one of my former managers actually at the retail place I worked at. I mean, I'll tell you, like in Florida, I mean, you do not want to marry a gal down in Florida because what you have, guys, it's a little different probably for you, Noble, or if you would understand this definitely, MGTOW Cowboy, whatever your name is. Um, you have this dynamic where you have the deep Southern culture, which is naturally very kind of like I said earlier, very male feminist. But then you have that coastal culture, like any of the coastal cultures, Noble, tend to be more liberal. So you mesh them together, and you have Florida. I mean, yes, granted, Florida has a very like quote Republican governor, DeSantis, but it's at the end of the day, it's not really impacting the vast majority of women in the state. It's not doing anything. So I had a former, just so you know, Todd MGTOW Cowboys going he's actually going to be signing off. So just so you were
Oh,
because he had to get going. I had a
I
former
will
co
soon also because I have to get to bed soon. But
Okay. I actually had a former coworker right now who's in jail for like statutory rape. And he's actually I don't know if he's been sentenced yet, but he's been in jail now for like a year. He was having some action, I guess, with a 16-year-old. So he I
Yeah,
guess
do avoid that. With
yeah,
that, I
but
will exit stage left. Yeah, okay.
mhm.
Todd, it was excellent speaking with you again. Tyler, again, excellent speaking with
Absolutely.
you. Please consider trucking. The environment is very macho. It's very pro male, and the money's good. And you can go even further.
Yeah.
Buy your own truck. Try to be an owner operator and all that. And yeah, guys, don't please everyone spread the message. Tell the
Yeah.
men we're in a gender war. Don't get married right now.
Yeah,
Don't get
here,
married.
if I can add, most people here in Argentina don't get married. Just
Yeah.
to clarify that, most people here don't get married. I actually was talking to a Venezuelan girl yesterday about that. She was saying how, like, in a proud way, like, oh, us women here, we don't get married in Latin America. I'm like, awesome,
Well,
that's
there you
great.
go. There you go.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, gentlemen, take care.
Great.
It was a pleasure. Thank you again. Bye now.
Thank you,
All
Noble.
right,
Yeah,
see ya.
over now.
Bye bye.
So I was
The
going to
show
ask
should
you,
be going
Noble.
soon.
I was going to ask you, Noble. This is kind of a bit off topic. Did you know about Rushvi? Had you ever heard of Rushvi?
Yeah, in 2015, like now he's a Christian or whatever. Like he wrote books about how to bang Iceland and Latvia. It's like it's so outdated. Like that shit doesn't work. It never did. That guy, oh my God, he's so
Oh, it's
surface level.
What? So that you never really were that in, like you never found it very, like it wasn't very helpful. The stuff he said.
It never resonated with me because I was already like I already believed that if a woman gets out of line, you have all the right to slap her across the face. I mean, not right according to the law, but like within your honor and what God wants for a man. So it was like pussy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately, like what I've seen and experienced with like the current state of affairs, it's difficult. Like this was actually one of the driving forces that caused me to get really disgusted with the European Union. Was just like when I would be in Poland, that was his main hub was Poland, Rush, and I remember what he would say about Poland, how he'd just like throw a girl down on like her chest and like like do what he wanted. But I mean, my experience with Polish girls was I don't know where he was meeting these kinds of girls because maybe they were working girls or something because the experiences I had did not parallel with his. But keep in mind the ones I generally met with were Gen Zs, and they were not easy at all. I mean, they were hard. Like maybe for a guy who was really wealthy or something, high status, maybe easy. But for me, I mean, it wasn't as bad as Estonia, but they were like super difficult. Now, I mean, I guess girls everywhere are novel and vain, but like they're especially novel, vain. I would waste my time going out on dates, like meet them on Bumble or something. Nothing would come of it. Try initiate romantic interaction. They would get like pissed off or just really like fake and just. I just found it to be a very shallow, fake environment, similar to what I would find in America.
Yeah,
See,
no,
Rush V is so it's like nothing that guy ever said is like revolutionary. It's all like things that has been popularized by guys before him.
Yeah, it's like maybe that stuff would have worked. Maybe if you went to Poland like in the 1990s or something, but Poland in the 90s would be like here. It was poor. It would like, I mean, once Poland ceased to be this like underdeveloped third world country, wow, all of a sudden, like it's like what I've said. The women obviously just turn into total garbage, and they become arrogant, narcissistic to the max. And guess what? Nothing I can do about it. And I realized that I'm like, there's nothing I can do about this. It's just what it is. And I can go on all day knowing that I'm right. Guy like you, Noble Sage, Tyler, we're all right about this. I know we're right in what we know, but unfortunately, the truth isn't what's being promoted in the world. Apart from maybe some stuff Putin says, and most of these major Western leaders are completely full of nonsense.
Yeah. I mean, like, let me ask you, Noble. And so, like, Rush, obviously, like, he converted, I guess, well, yeah, I guess he converted back to his Orthodox Christianity. Like, actually, I'm not going to bring that up now because that goes way off topic. Something like I was going to ask you, Todd, is so you're and I was going to ask you this before. From the time you've been in Argentina, it's been like what you've been out with maybe 7 or 8 gals.
No, it's been total.
Yeah.
It's been 3.
No, so what do you think makes it like a more optimal situation right now, say compared to, I mean, like where you were before and like just how the people act and stuff? It seems to be just more pleasant and stuff for overall.
Yeah, a few reasons. Obviously, Argentina is a third world country. I think average income here now is probably no more than several $100s a month since they have like 250% inflation a year now. So the average incomes are really low. And it's what else? I think just how the natural culture is.
Mhm.
It's I think like us in America, it's also more of a pioneer or colonial stock of people. So something that's interesting, Noble Savage. I don't say this offensively, but something I've noticed with Argentines, like in terms of how they generally look, um, usually like the people are generally like better looking. I don't know if you've seen the same thing, Noble Savage, compared to what I see in like Spain or Italy. Have you seen it? Like, what do you think about that theory?
I'm
Like,
failing to understand why that would be offensive.
okay, well, do you think that like maybe the survival, like people having to survive in these harsh conditions, might make that happen?
Make what happen? Excuse me.
That the fact that like I've noticed in countries like, say, India, for example, where there's like an overabundance of men and there's too few women, that it like causes the genetics to get worse. But if there's too many women and too few men, it seems to improve the genetics.
I
What
think
do you
it's
think?
I think it's mostly it's not just the genetics itself. It's also the age that these females are having children, because we all know that there's malfunctions and there's deficiencies and stuff. For example, um, both of my parents are very good-looking people. I don't
Yeah.
mean that to brag or anything. Unfortunately, none of them are very smart. So
Hmm.
my mom had me when she was 23 years old, and the
Okay,
reason I
that's a
say she
good
was not
age.
very the reason I say she was not very bright was that she was a drug addict. She's still using. My
Oh,
dad got clean, and in Portugal we have so much cocaine over here that no cap, 90% of all the population has either tried it or is currently hooked on it.
Wow.
And what I want to say is she
wow, terrible.
well she was
Yeah.
using cocaine when she was pregnant with me, and I
Awful.
there's nothing that was like fucked up about me, and she did a lot of it. Like I'm good looking. I have a full head of hair. I'm not very
Mhm.
tall. I think Tyler mentioned that he's 6'3". I'm just under 6 foot, so I'm like 5'11 and a quarter.
Mhm.
And had my mom had been cleaned, but if she had me at 33, I would say I would have come out with maybe, I don't want to say fucked up, but less healthy. Let's just say that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's definitely I think a valid point. It's interesting too because I've seen this interesting dynamic where if a man is not terribly bright, but the woman is, it seems like the kid or children can be quite intelligent. But if it's like the man who's intelligent and the woman who's not so much, it seems like the kid always turns out not so bright. And I know some people are like, oh, well, that's how it's because the kid's being raised by a smart mom. But I'm like, yeah, I don't know. To me, I wonder if there's some sort of correlation there or some sort of connection, because I don't know if you know this, but I studied genetics, biotechnology in the university is what I studied. So I looked a lot into genetics and all of this kind of stuff. And there's a lot of interesting stuff there.
Yeah, like, well, and it's also interesting novel because like our mom is like a sister, and her she was like kind of on the what you'd call the short bus in America. She basically was classified as special education, and she had a son. Her youngest son was the same way. He's our age, and then like she has like two older sons, and one of them's like legit like in prison right now for all these crimes. He started committing crimes like in his teens. I think he had a lot of like anger issues, and then he just wasn't the brightest person. And then there's like one other brother, and I don't know what he does. Like I think he's very like probably kind of below average, but he's like the only one of the three that like is able to live like somewhat normal of those three brothers, and you see that. And one other interesting thing is that I think let's see here. I mean, she wasn't like the two older sons she had. Like she wasn't like that old, honestly. But I think it relates to like what Todd was saying about the whole gene stuff. How I mean, nowadays, like it's crazy in America. I don't know how it is in Portugal, but like I mean, I remember with my parents being baby boomers. Like if you were like even early 30s, certainly like mid 30s, that was considered old for like planning on having children, whereas like now that's like considered like normal. And what's considered old now is like early to say like mid 40s. Like you heard what that guy MGTOW Cowboy said. It's just insane where the society has gotten to. And I mean, even with, I'm sure you know about Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah.
Even with him, I think that might be similar to what you were pointing out, because I don't know what the lifestyle of his mom was. I know his dad was a hardcore alcoholic, but his I think his parents were, his mom was fairly, or I guess younger when she had him, but how is it now in Portugal? Is it kind of the same way?
I mean, it's the same way like the US is right now, but it's nowhere near like it was in the 90s when I was born.
Okay, interesting. But by the way, this is a bit off topic. What do you think of Cristiano Ronaldo?
Like as an athlete or as a guy?
Like as a guy, and I mean he's from your nation. He's like a huge, obviously probably the most well-known person in Portugal.
I mean, he's the most followed man on Twitter also.
Is he?
Yeah. I like him. He's a family guy. He really likes his children. He's a family man. I respect that.
Mm-hmm.
He was a little bit of a douche when he was like 19 years old, 20 years old, but now he's like, I think he's about to retire because he's damn near 40.
Mm-hmm.
I like him, but unfortunately, what is he saying that we can learn from him? Like it's not like he has an experience like Tom Brady with his ex-wife and stuff. I don't think there's a lot that we can learn from him.
No, yeah, and that's unfortunate. The problem with him is he's kind of like, he's a very intelligent soccer player, like in terms of his sports intelligence. But I mean, I would be lying if I said a person. He seems kind of like not the brightest. Like the fact that he won't even speak English, like having lived in England and stuff. I mean, I'm like,
yeah.
I mean, seriously, man, you can't speak English. I mean, come on.
Yeah, and that's Yeah, I mean, English is really not. I understand for people that are like like are just living in their own country, but phonetically, grammatically, English is actually not considered that hard of a language. And of course, people might look at Tyler and I and be like, "Oh, well, you grew up speaking the language, so it's obvious that you're going to." Oh, sorry about this. That it's obvious that you're going to say that or it's predictable that you would say that it's easy, but it's like, no, it's not that hard of a language, and it's it surprises me even here to this day in Argentina how many people don't know it. Of course, I mean, it's good in a way because obviously these stupid backpacker types that make their way here or whatever weirdos come here and they can't really communicate with the girl so well unless the girl knows English. So I can pretty much monopolize on all these gals here who basically can't communicate with all these other European or North American guys.
I mean,
Yeah.
if I was in your shoes, this is what I would do. I don't know if you have the brass balls to do this. Like, I wouldn't do this in South America,
Beat
but
them up.
when I was hitchhiking, I've
Yeah.
always met the nicest people because anyone who still gives anyone a ride these days is a great person. And I ended up meeting whole families. Like the father would like take me to his house. I would meet his wife. I would meet his kids. Like I would talk to the daughter. And there was a particular situation that this was in Slovakia like 5 years ago or something. The father, he really took a liking to me, and he like it was a situation that
Shared his wife with you.
if I kept contact with his family, I'm pretty sure I could have maybe pursued a relationship with his daughter even. And I wanted to pump and dump, and I kind of regret it.
I was waiting for you to say that he was going to share his wife with you or something.
No.
No, I'm joking.
I don't know. Like I'm 32 years old, right? And
Yeah.
if my calculations are correct, I've been with about, I would say, like 26, 27 women in my life. And for a guy who's been traveling for 12 years, that's really not a lot. But it's just like, when you set a standard with one girl who's like better looking than all the others from before, like in the
Yeah.
MGTOW community, we call like the term alpha widows. I don't want to say like I've been with like an alpha woman because there's no such term, but like no one else compares to, for example, my ex-girlfriend from Ternopil in Ukraine. And I much rather be alone for a long time than just being with some mid bitch with a cunt's attitude. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It's like, well, I think about both of the gals that like I was with last night, and that like honestly, it's like with both of them, they were like very quite attractive, and usually I wouldn't say this. One of them actually, one of the things I don't like is her Instagram is she has quite a pretty healthy following there, which
Oh, dude, it's over.
yeah, but
Look, if she speaks English and if she's on
no,
social media, it's over.
yeah, fortunately she
You
does.
can pump,
Yeah,
and you should dump.
yeah, yeah. Otherwise, she will dump me anyhow if she
Why do you
pursues
say
it.
that, Noble? Like, based with the social thing?
Dude, because I mean, you guys are very well traveled. I think you know that if she speaks English and she comes from a non-speaking, if speaking English-speaking country, all the what's the word here? All the influence from Western media and Hollywood, that's where she learned English. Of course, it's going to be garbage.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. One, that's a good thing with. That's why I said like both of these that I was with last night, they couldn't. Neither can speak fluent English, so that's something good because when I first got here, the very first girlfriend I had, she was fluent and very fluent in English, and that was a big problem because it was the same thing when I for a lot of the time when I was over in Russia. I don't know why early on, especially, I didn't really take effort to learn Russian, and I would have to like the first girl I was, or first two girls I was with, they could speak English. The second one a little better, and then after that, the ones who could speak English weren't even interested in dating me. Only the ones who just spoke Russian, which would have been fine if my Russian was at a high enough level. Like with Spanish is much easier to learn, takes quicker. The one of the problems is that my Russian, at least at that point, wasn't high enough. And I'm not sure with your ex from Ukraine if you had to talk to her in Russian, but it's a hard language. Like you have to learn noun declensions and genders, and there's like a certain order with things and spelling, all this stuff, accents. So did you talked to your ex in Russian, I'm guessing?
Yes, because she was from Dnipro, like Dnipropetrovsk. So she was originally speaking Russian throughout her childhood. And
Okay.
potato, they say kartoshka, and
Yep.
in Ukrainian they say kartopla. And for
Yep.
me, it was like Russian made more sense to learn because it's much more wide spoken, whereas Ukrainian, it's only really Western Ukraine and maybe a little bit of southern Ukraine also. But it's like it doesn't matter what you do for these bitches. Learn their language, fucking meet the parents, anything. They know that they're the hottest bitches on earth, and no matter what you do will ever be enough for them. So just pump and dump and move on, really.
Yeah, and especially with that's an issue. Like I will have to point out with Eastern Slavic people, which is something I think that even like Putin, unfortunately, Vladimir Putin doesn't quite understand or realize. Obviously, too, if he's with a girl, I mean, he's like the richest man in the world and one of the most powerful. She's never going to like probably dump him because I mean, even though he's a little older now, he I mean, who is she going to find that is more powerful and wealthy than Putin? So I think him and some of the leadership is kind of out of touch with things because they have so much power and money that for like the average, their experience is quite a bit different than the average guy. And I'm surprised, to be frank with you, that you were with Ukraine because the ones that I encountered, like I said, in Poland, were awful. Like they were just the worst, scummiest people I've met. Like I can say that I could understand why Russia had to go to war with Ukraine after experiencing, especially among the women there, what I saw, absolutely treacherous. So I'm glad at least you got some. How long were you with her?
I was with her for about a year, just under a year. I know it's actually quite tragic because this God, I don't want to sound like a pussy, but this even makes me a little emotional to talk about. So she became pregnant, and
Okay.
to this day, I don't know what the fuck happened. I don't know if she lost the baby accidentally. I don't know if she aborted it, but she just refuses to tell me because, well, being the hothead that I am, I actually accused her of aborting it, and she never told me after that. I guess it's my fault, but you should never leave a guy like in limbo like this. It still eats me to this day. And I mean, I could have been a father, but I accepted that my chance is gone. I mean, if I go on an epic quest of just spreading masculine wisdom throughout everywhere I go, for like forever I will roam. I don't care, but I'll be fine.
Yeah, I'm very sorry to hear that. Whatever was the cause of that. I mean, in any case, it's definitely a very devastating event to have to endure. And I certainly hope that it wasn't an abortion because that would be very unfair to you. The fact that if I mean if
I
you are
may
the
ask,
only,
oh sorry.
I was just going to say, provided that you are the only person that was involved with her, I mean, of course, if there was another guy in the picture or guys, then I guess
No. Like, so I have a thing that it's like in the beginning, I say, if I decide to devote myself to you with my energy, time, resources, attention, everything,
Yeah.
if you ever cheat on me, I don't. Oh, Tyler, I don't want to get you in trouble, but essentially, I tell all of them that if you cheat on me, I will take your life from you. I don't even care what happens to me.
Okay.
And then she ended up accepting my terms, and so I know that she understood the consequences, because I mean, I put my hands on her, like I give my palm like a sunburn. It was, I don't know how to be in a I mean, I've been broken over the years because I was trying to do the right thing, and now I don't. I'm undateable pretty much. I'm broken beyond repair pretty much, really.
Yeah, well, I would, if I were you, just stay there in the EU, because honestly, I think if you, I don't, I'm not like angry or anything, but if you did that in Russia, at least my experience, the girl would have probably immediately dumped you, and she would have been on the phone to the police to get you arrested. Seriously, if you had done the same thing in Russia. So it's definitely good that you were living there and not in, I don't know how Ukraine is, but in Russia, you would have been hauled off to jail, and I know how that goes. It would have been like, ugh, like that's wow. I guess you
How did
walked
you
out
meet her,
there.
Neville?
So she was selling excursions like on the streets in the square, and actually she was the one who said hello to me first, because it's part of her job, and I just said, hey, what if I take you out for a Waffle House? Like, let's go to the Waffle House instead or something. And then just we went from there, because I don't do that Tinder bullshit. That shit is for like low IQ, surface level cunts. Really, I don't do that.
See, it's funny. This is the irony for me. I'm being honest. I cannot. The only way I've been able to meet girlfriends is only through Tinder and Bumble. Like, I cannot. Like, I've tried meeting girls in person, and I do not have luck. I mean, I can go out on like a date, and then it never goes beyond that. The only way that I can take things to relationship. Keep in mind that they won't last that long. It'll be like a 3-4 month relationship. Well, when I was with the Eastern Slavs, with girls here in Argentina, they were longer, like year and a half or something. But with the Eastern Slavs, they were short. They would stay with me for like 3 or 4 months and then dump me. The only way I could meet them though was through like Tinder or Bumble. I tried in person and might get a single date, and then they weren't interested.
I mean, I talk with another guy. I mean, if you want, because relationships are an investments, and you want to get a return out of your efforts. I met a guy who pretty much was saying, hey, if you want to call it quits, that's fine, but you got to pay for all the time and energy and money that I spent. And the last girl that was with him said, well, what do you mean? And he said, you got to pay with pain. And he just pretty much give her the whole like father-daughter like a punishment that people like they would do like in the 50s and backwards,
Well, as I said,
I don't mean that in a foreplay thing. I mean, I actually mean like savage, like a barbarian style.
Wow. Well, as I said, like most of my dating experience has been in Argentina and Russia. I'm not sure what it would be like here, but in Russia, I mean, as I said, the girl would immediately dump you, call the police, and you'd be hauled off to jail and probably like sit in jail for a few days, and then they would, if probably go through the process of deporting you. So it's good
that's actually, I don't understand. That's actually hard for me to believe, because there's a culture over there of men beating their women.
I never saw that. Like,
it's of course you don't see it. They do it behind closed doors, man.
I don't know. I mean, look, here's the thing. I'm kind of skeptical with anything coming out of the mainstream media, because it's kind of like you saw those rumors where I think they were saying Trump was urinating on some prostitutes or something. And it's like when you have media outlets saying that kind of stuff, and then you have them saying that, oh, there's like culture of abuse. I'm like, where? I never encountered a single person. So who knows? Maybe I'm not denying it, but I never
What
saw it.
how do I was going to ask you, what were you doing for work, Noble? Did like have you had various careers, or because it seems like you've lived in some of these countries, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. How were you able to sustain yourself?
I mean, I don't want to get in trouble, but how should I say this in the most friendly, family-friendly way? Because I don't want to get your channel in trouble. Look,
You'll
when a
be
man is
fine.
hungry, he needs to. Okay, I was stealing. That's really what it was. I was stealing. I wasn't mugging people on the street, but
Okay.
if there's
Wow.
one thing,
Interesting.
like, if there's one thing that I know how to do on this earth is to take care of myself without getting, fuck, how can I say this without like making it sound like all cartoonish and shit? It's like this. My philosophy is the world has never been more pussified than it is today. So
Mhm.
you can make people give you what you need for your basic human needs without it being like intimidation or something. I don't know if
Okay.
some
Like
people would call that
scamming?
stealing. I don't want to say scamming, but I guess
Okay.
like the friendliest form of demanding something,
Okay.
Look, I was in
Interesting.
a gas station.
Yeah.
One time. I didn't have shit. It was just me, my tent, my sleeping bag. I wanted some food.
Okay.
And then after approaching cars for like an hour, offering to wash cars for like a sandwich or like a protein meal, a shake or something, I just approached a guy shorter than me and I said,
Mhm.
"Sir, do you have any food with you?" And he said, "No, I don't have anything." And I said, "Sir, I'm a human being like you. I don't know when it was the last time you ate, but I need some food." I spoke with him like I'm speaking with you right now.
Mhm.
And that's all it took. And I was actually amazed how well that worked. And I just started applying and duplicating and replicating the experience.
Wow. That would be
Because,
a whole
dude,
different.
I have nothing to lose over here. I don't have a job. I live in my van. It's like fucking. I live in a boat sometimes in a tent. It's like, who's gonna stop me? The cops? Do you know how long the cops are gonna? It takes them to show up for something small like this,
In Portugal?
dude. Anywhere.
Okay.
You
Wow,
know
good
how
thing you're
busy
not in
cops
the
are.
U.S. Yeah, like in the I mean, in Florida, they'll go for like the most petty crimes. Like if, I mean, I mean, there's stories that are so crazy, but yeah, you're right. In most places, they're not. Yeah, like
Like,
seriously though, you should consider Argentina though, because some of the like your traits and stuff really would mesh down really well down there. I think, wouldn't you agree, Todd?
wait, are you talking to
Uh,
Todd or me?
yeah,
Like both of you. Mhm.
yeah,
I'm not leaving.
potentially. I think the life, from what I'm hearing though, I think that would
Mhm.
be more difficult here because there's such a scarcity of resources. Like,
Hmm.
I can say how much of a scarcity is that it's like, I don't, well, I think the average person here now is living on like literally a couple $100 a month or less. And it's so poor that I think it would be hard to even get much assistance from people because the
Oh.
people themselves, especially for a guy who's coming from Europe, they're going to expect that you have the dough, like we
Yeah,
could say.
it wouldn't fly over there. This would not happen over there.
Okay. That's
Yeah,
why
they
it's
would.
not here.
Yeah, because people like usually, well, yeah, that's what I think how they would kind of see it, which for me, I mean, I'm not wealthy, but I'll say this is I I do better than like even a lot of Americans. So for me, I can deal with now and then like, people can assume what they want, and in my case it is kind of true what they assume about me. But for a person who wasn't economically well off enough, I think they would be better off living over there, I would say. You remember in Estonia, Tyler, like you can live
Mhm.
over there for very little money, and
Absolutely.
even like remember some of those guys where they could just kind of hustle and stuff and survive.
Mhm.
So it's much easier if you're doing that hustler lifestyle, much easier in the European Union.
Mhm.
Dude,
Oh,
I fed myself like free food from the restaurant just by walking into the joint, asking
Yeah.
for the manager or the owner, offering to
yeah.
work like 1 hour for free to get a meal. 9 times out of 10, if it's just about food and not money, the guy
Mhm.
just says, "Hey man, just sit down. I'll get you some food. You don't need to do anything."
Wow.
Well,
Did so when you were with the Ukrainian, did you guys live in the van?
No, like I mean, I feel embarrassed to say this. We were living at her house. Of course, I was like, I offered to pay the rent because I didn't want to go through a contract and stuff. So I just offered to um, pay for the rent and like live with her and
Mhm.
pay for everything. But it's just like increasingly she would like add like little things like to like for me to pay and
Mhm.
stuff. Like, oh, my mom needs this, and it's like, fuck. I mean, it just makes me like noxious to just think about like all the hoops that you have to jump through like to just like have a normal relationship, like even there.
Mhm.
yeah, yeah. Well, I can tell you, there's a Russian girl that I know. She lives in Krasnodar, and technically, she was also one of my girlfriends. And with her, she would go from saying that we're friends to I'm her boyfriend to we're friends. Like, just she'd flip back, and which I don't really care about, honestly. But she like had asked me, like, since I left, she's asked me if I can buy her this stuff, and I tell her, how can I get money over there? Like, I literally can't even get money there. Everything, not everything, but it's mostly cut off. It's so hard, like all the stuff you would have to do to get money from the West into Russia now. And it won't be like just some small little thing. It'll be like, she asked me if I could buy her this 1600, like what would be like a $1,600 computer laptop. I just bought a laptop recently. It was around, if you convert for US, it would be like maybe 600, 650. She wanted one that was 1600. It's like, this
Wow.
is way more than what I would pay for myself. And I didn't buy some cheap piece of garbage. I mean, I bought a pretty decent computer, and I'm like, 1600, what? And she's like, oh, well, this is what like Russian guys will do. Uh, and I'm like, most Russian guys don't even make that in a month. Like, they're not making that in a couple months. So how do they afford to buy that?
She was subtly trying to suggest that if you don't do it, other guys will, but that's cap.
Yeah, they can't afford to over there.
And if
Like,
they
it's,
can, they won't do it. Like
yeah,
Russians are real, like Russian guys are really intelligent, even though they have a stereotype for not being very bright. Like
yeah,
Russians, they don't take a shit without having a plan first.
Mhm.
yes, exactly. So it, it's like, I'm not, like, I can't, like, here's the thing about it. Because she thought I was dumb enough to think that, oh, if I'm this much of a simp and buy her all this stuff, I would get the honor of marrying her and then be taken to court and then have to go through that whole thing. Like, she's the kind of person where it's so obvious that she would be very problematic in a marriage. Like, it's as obvious as the light of day. And she's the kind of person where, I mean, and look, I don't even like saying this about her because I don't like talking bad about people behind their back. I'm just saying
Oh, come on.
about, well, honestly, I feel like a bitch doing this. I would just rather tell the person up front to them is that in all honesty, she's the kind of person that would be where she'd be totally problematic in a marriage, like these disastrous divorces where the woman is just treacherous. That's the kind of person where they married. The ones that are the worst, it's people like her. And to say there were no red flags, I don't believe it. Like, there are red flags. It's just these guys that marry those kind of people, they don't have any other options. They just have to take whatever they can get.
Yeah, and
Sadly.
that's like so when those demands were made, Noble, would you pay for the XYZ item?
No, I was very combative and disagreeable, as a man should be by nature, not especially in these modern times. And most of the time she would just say, "Oh, don't worry about it," because slowly but surely they know that if they push you too far, you end up just walking away, because guys just walk like out on them like so many times, because there's so many women over there, so many women in comparison to dudes. Like in a French female, it's like it's totally different. Like it's like the delusion and the solipsism. Like this is what, like, a lot of guys in the red pill they don't even know what solipsism means. It's like her whole reality, it's not synchronized with what the real world is. And it's just, for example, Tom Brady, right? I mentioned Tom Brady before.
Yeah.
His wife thought that not only she could find a guy like him, but she could find a better guy.
Yep.
And he got a younger female than her, so he won
Yeah.
and she lost. You see the solipsism? Crazy.
Yep. Yeah, and that's true. It's and that's the delusion that it's that level, I think, of again, of arrogance and narcissism, if I want to say that word. Although that's a favorite word of the one guy Tyler mentioned, Lunchbox. He's just really small on YouTube, but he likes to use that word every single video, or for every single video. And the level of delusion now is unbelievable. Especially, like I said, I spent so long in continental Europe. I get so tired of it. Like, just the that, like, global homo culture and the arrogance and just ruthlessness of the people. Well, more so the women. And it was just so cold. And I'm like, you're like, at least for me, I'm thinking about it, I'm like, this is garbage. Like, if this is what I'm having to deal with, at least I want to live somewhere where the people, at least at least how they look or how they act is happier. Because having to put up with this kind of garbage, I mean, just makes a person miserable. And I just got totally just sick of it. So I guess everyone's different, though. Some people might, I'm sure, women there, I know they love it. The women in the European Union, they're in love with it because it's so feminist and gynocentric that for them it's perfect.
It's very interesting that you say that, because when you say something like, I have to go somewhere where the mindset of the population is more synchronized with mine, I am way beyond that. I'm at a point in my life where it doesn't matter where you go,
Yeah.
Westernization and globalization is going to travel faster, and the influence is going to keep changing. So it doesn't matter if it's a Thai village, fucking countryside house in the Chinese mountains or something, or like Tibet or something. If there's internet in there and Western ideals, they're going to eat that up and think it's the greatest shit ever. And like, it's poison. It's like it's gonna spread fast. So I prefer to stay where I am. My territory is anywhere from
Portugal.
between, yeah. I am in Portugal right now, waiting for the good weather to come so I can go north again, make some money. Anywhere between here and the end of like Finland, it's like it's my territory, and I will go on an epic crusade of like instill my beliefs forcibly to all the simps and all the feminists that stand in my way. I don't even care what happens to me anymore. I am not afraid of going back.
You can go Elliot Roger. You're like the same. Actually, you'd be born, I think, the same year. You know who Elliot Roger was?
Oh, please. Okay, number one, I'm not Asian. Number two, like, what do you mean?
I mean, like, he went into that, like, killing rampage.
Maybe I need to make myself clearly here. I don't mean like taking anyone's life, of course, but I do mean that slapping a bitch across the face is not the worst thing that can be done, you know?
Right. Well, and I think from what I know, and they're in the EU, it seems like the laws are not like in America or Russia or something where, I mean, you do that like in America, and you could be looking at like a pretty hefty, like some like pretty harsh punishment, or in Russia, if you're like a foreign person, you would be also facing some pretty stiff repercussions. But it seemed to me in the EU, the punishment for stuff was so light that, like, yeah, I mean, why not? Like, you're in the best place that you could be for doing that stuff. In worst case scenario, you have to go to like jail for a night or something. But it's not that bad in the EU. Like, especially in those Northern European countries, if there's anywhere you're going to do that, that's probably the place to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean like being in an abusive relationship with my girlfriend. I mean, like, if you slap a strange woman on the streets and you walk away or run away, who's gonna stop me?
Yeah, no one probably. Yeah, it's there. It's like
no one has so far. No one has so far.
Do you have any wild stories related to that, Noble?
Listen,
I mean,
can I interrupt? I have to go to bed because I have to wake up tomorrow with my work and stuff. So, anyhow, it's been a real pleasure. And also, like, if there's any other like questions or anything, I'll just throw my email in here right now. In the chat. So, all right. Well, take care, guys.
I'll see you later,
take
Todd.
care, man. Good
I
night.
guess it's just Noble and I.
Yeah. Bye.
Yeah. So,
what was your question, Tyler?
Do you have any like kind of wild stories related to what we were talking about?
I mean, Switzerland is pretty rich. I once I don't want to say made, a chick gave me like 100 francs, which is like almost the same in euros, in like 20 seconds, but it did happen.
How did you do that?
Dude, it's like this. I'm intimidating looking, but like the handsome type, which is like if you approach a woman and she feels intimidated, she's gonna be like intrigued and not like call for help. So it's like I didn't have shit. I was hungry and I saw a chick who was alone, and I knew that she was gonna have money because she parked her nice car in a parking lot of the supermarket, and I asked for food. She gave me a little bit of hers, and then she ended up giving me 100 francs. I mean, it was clean.
Wow, it's impressive.
I mean, it's just it's like
I don't want to like work in sales.
No, I can do that because I don't do well with waking up at like early time. No, I don't do well with that. But what I mean is, I don't want to get like all cosmical and stuff, but the universe will give you what you ask of it. You just got to have good social skills and be gentle when you have to be, and be forceful when necessary. You know, like a noble savage.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Like, so you finished high school when you were like 17?
I mean, I didn't finish high school at all.
Oh, well. So when was your last year of school?
I dropped out of what is it called? Is it elementary school or middle school?
Oh, how old were you?
15. I was in grade 8.
Middle school then? Yeah, middle school. Wow. So you've been
it was just not it was just not for me. It just you know when were you a good student in school?
Pretty well, yeah.
Okay, so I was horrible.
Very much. Okay.
I was horrible. I had horrible marks. I mean, grades. But it's only because I questioned if the school system was in line with human nature, and all the other kids that were getting all the good grades, they just felt like there was nothing else in the world. So if you're thinking about IQ and thinking outside the box, I don't want to say I was smarter than everyone else. I just didn't care enough to even try. So I told my parents I wanted to work.
Yeah.
I started putting some flyers on the windshield wipers for like $20 a day for like 5 hours, and I made some money for my first trip.
Wow. What I'm thinking that would be like have been like the mid 2000s, because I mean that is a long time ago. You were out of school. That's
Yeah, this was 2007, I think.
okay. That yeah, and it's interesting too, because like how it shapes someone, and just how someone becomes like all the indoctrination and stuff, for example, has such like an embedded imprint on someone. And I think like you have probably kind of a more similar situation to MGTOW Cowboy. It's or like background wise, I think would have been more akin to how he was. What's your Let me ask you something. Perhaps like we could just do a video like in the future or this week, just you and I. Is that like with some of your like kind of stories and whatnot? Would that work for you?
Yeah, that would be very doable. I think also I have to go to bed soon because it is
Yeah.
currently it just turned 3 a.m. over here. I have to go to bed soon, but I'll be very interested to do this like in a video or a stream,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
maybe earlier than
Yeah,
than when you
yeah.
started.
Yeah, it's always very interesting. Like some of the subs, quite interested in their backgrounds. And you probably have one of the most unique ones.
Oh, dude, I
Um,
like if that's
mhm.
one thing that I could say. I never met anyone like me, but also I wouldn't wish this lifestyle upon anyone, really.
Yeah. No, I definitely can testify to that. The other thing also is I have WhatsApp, so you can also reach me. We can use email for that.
Yeah,
So with that said, then I guess it was awesome meeting you, and I think everyone else enjoyed learning about you and whatnot. So buenas noches, or boa
yeah. Have
noite,
a
I
good
think you
night.
guys say. Yep,
Yeah, we say boa noite in
boa
Portuguese.
noite. Yep, remember that. Okay, cool. Then we'll be in contact, and have a good evening.
Yeah, have a good night, Tyler. Take care.
Yep. Adios.